And to those that are in attendance, if you could put your mic on mute until we get going. Sometimes it bogs everything down.
We're broadcasting live, everyone.
Thank you very much, Andrew. Welcome, everyone, to the June 8th Town of Mono Council meeting. This meeting is being conducted by means of electronic participation as permitted by Section 238, 3.1 of the Municipal Act 2001 as amended, and the Town of Mono Procedural Bylaw 2020-42. Unfortunately, Council Chambers is not open to the public at this time. You can view this meeting live on the Mono Civic web portal video as we've started the meeting. I want to confirm that there is a quorum of council. All members are in attendance, and I call this meeting to order. And I want to notify everybody that public notification of proceedings being video recorded and broadcast so that you are aware of this. And would like to remind all members of council that disclosure of pecuniary interest can be made now at any time throughout the meeting. Since we last met, there was a horrific discovery in Kamloops, BC, regarding the residential school and the 215 remains of children that were in attendance at that school. We have lowered our flags to half-mast, and we are prepared to continue to do that until such time as the federal government deems it appropriate to raise the flags again. So at this time, I'd like to ask Councillor Martin if she would read the Indigenous land acknowledgement.
Got it. Thank you. We would like to begin by respectfully acknowledging that the town of Mono resides within the traditional territory and ancestral lands of the Tetunatahi, the Attawandaron, the Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe peoples. We also acknowledge that the town of Mono resides within the treaty lands named under Treaty 18, the Nottawasaga Purchase of 1818. These traditional territories upon which we live and learn are steeped in the Indigenous history and traditions. It is with this statement that we declare to honor and respect the past and present connection of Indigenous peoples with this land, its waterways, and resources. Miigwech.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. We're moving on to Section 1, adoption of the agenda and previous minutes. At this time, I would like to add the updated bylaw, appointment of bylaw officers to new business. And does anybody else have any additions or deletions? Seeing none, I will ask that Council approves the agenda of Session 13-2021 as amended. Could I have a mover? Moved by Nix and seconded by Martin. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Is anyone opposed to the motion? Seeing none, that's carried. And on to the approval of the previous minutes. That Council approves the minutes of Session 11-2021 and 12-2021 as circulated. Could I have a mover? Moved by Mantilo, seconded by Nix. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call. Yes, John.
I have a declaration that I've made orally, but I've been remiss in getting it into our clerk in writing, but I will follow up tomorrow morning.
Okay, thank you. That's been noted. And so with that, is anyone opposed for the motion? Seeing none, that carries. And now we're on to proclamation. National Indigenous Peoples Day. Whereas in 2009, June was declared National Indigenous History Month by the passing of a unanimous motion of the House of Commons. And whereas recognizing National Indigenous History Month is an opportunity for citizens to learn more about the history of the Indigenous peoples in Canada, the First Peoples of Canada. And whereas in cooperation with the Indigenous peoples' natural organizations, the Government of Canada designated June 21st as National Indigenous Peoples Day. And whereas June 21st was chosen because it corresponds to the summer solstice, the longest day of the year, and for generations, many Indigenous peoples groups have celebrated their culture and heritage at this time of year. And whereas National Indigenous Peoples Day is an opportunity to become better acquainted with the cultural diversity of First Nations, Inuit, Métis peoples, to discover the unique accomplishment of Indigenous peoples. Therefore, I, Mayor Laura Ryan, do proclaim June 2021 as National Indigenous History Month and June 21, 2021 as National Indigenous Peoples Day in the town of Mono, and urge all residents to take this opportunity to celebrate and recognize the contributions of the Indigenous peoples in our community. Dated in council on this 8th day of June, 2021. Okay, thank you. So now we are on to public question period. Mr. Simpson, was there any questions received?
Your Worship, we received 2 questions submitted in advance for this evening. The first question is from Adele Barr-Kluman, and she asked if council would consider exploring whether there was a local parking pass that could be created for Mono citizens so they could access both Mono Cliffs Provincial Park and other surrounding trailheads.
Okay. And I know that as we have more discussions coming forward, those are part of the ideas and collaborative nature that we're going to be trying to develop. So we will respond back to Adele with the results of our discussions tonight. Anyone else want to add anything? Okay. So, and the next question.
The next question comes from Mr. Mark Darby, and the question is on the screen. And if I could just kind of trace it down somewhat, that he's asking what noise mitigation measures that council might be considering in putting in place with respect to the new tennis courts that are going to be built at Island Lake Family Park.
Okay, and from my understanding with the landscape design and other treatments that are being put in, the noise mitigation, not only with the natural topography of the park, but also the tree line and whatever landscaping should help with deadening any noise from travel. As far as the light is concerned, there were going to be lights in terms of the installation of the required power to be put across, but had we, because it's been a while since we've discussed this, had we actually come up with the times that any lights in that tennis court would be turned on? Anybody? Sharon?
We did discuss this. I think Kim had a plan for how long the lights would stay off in the evening.
Okay. So
Madam Mayor, if you like, I can share with you that the lights in our other courts at Cardinal Woods and at Mono Community Center, where the tennis club takes place, are on a timer until 10 p.m. at night. If their courts are being played on, that's only if players push the button and turn the actual lights on, but they do shut off automatically and cannot be turned back on past 10 p.m. That's what's going on in our other courts. Whether council chooses differently for these courts is up to council's discretion.
okay, thank you for that clarification. So in terms of the landscaping and preventing noise travel that Mr. Darby seems to be concerned about, my understanding was that the landscape was going to be put in such a way to prevent any travel of noise.
Yes, you're correct in that as far as noise is concerned, according to the landscaping plan, we have groups of 3 coniferous trees to be set at the back along the back of the park, I should say. That would be on the east side of the park along the rear of the property lines for coniferous trees to go in, as well as right up to by the pump house. And the reason for those trees were to mitigate the noise. And I will say that in our other 2 settings of parks where we have the tennis courts, both again Mono Center and Cardinal Woods, where the houses in Cardinal Woods are certainly closer than the homes in Island Lake Family Park. In my 31 years with the town, I've yet to receive a noise complaint regarding tennis courts.
Okay, thank you. Any other member of council have any points that they want to bring up with Mr. Darby's concerns? Okay, so we will formulate a response to his submitted question. And so that's it, Mr. Simpson?
That's it for submitted questions. I'm not sure if there are any questions from the gallery, though.
Okay. Is there any questions from the gallery at all? Okay.
Oh,
So, yes, John?
I'm just going to indicate that under new business, I'm going to propose a different approach to questions from the gallery to make it much easier for people to log in and ask questions without pre-submission.
Okay, thank you.
May I ask, is this the time to ask the questions, or is there a specific time?
This is public
Like
question.
when you're
period.
asking the gal, oh, okay, then I will wait till I'm asked to speak. Thank you.
So, okay, so you go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry, okay. I fully understand that we had an issue with parking and safety issues on our roads. I'm going to give a preamble of what my comments are and then ask my questions. But we went from a community that welcomed people to come and enjoy our beautiful town and parks to a gated community. Everywhere there are no parking signs, roads are closed. I hike every morning in the Mono Cliffs Park and now face a $250 fine for driving on a closed road when all of us as residents pay for those roads. We are restricted as to where we can go within our own community. How can council justify closing the community center parking lot where parents park their cars so that their kids can play in the parking lot, in the playground? On Saturday, a selected few cars were permitted to park in the community center parking lot while massive numbers were turned away. Who gets the privilege of parking in the gated parking lot? People are stressed and need to get out. What happened to we are all in this together? I was told that the Parks Department requested that the community center parking lot be closed to reduce the environmental impact on the park. There are more environmental impact on our park now with the only one parking lot open and approximately 100 people a day being permitted to use the same footpath to enter and leave. Mono Cliffs Park is 732 hectares. If there is more space and more entrances need to be open and available to people. Secondly, the council considered the financial impact of the closures of the roads and parking spots to our businesses, the Mono Cliffs Restaurant, Diane's Antique Shop, the Airbnbs, and my real estate office. By taking away the parking and gating Mono, we have all lost business and will continue to do so until the change is made. I understand that we needed to implement parking enforcement, but the town went from 0 to 100 overnight. I would like a commitment from council to reconsider the current closures and meet somewhere in the middle so that children can play in the park, people can enjoy our parks, and our businesses can earn a living. I would like the comments from council.
Okay, thank you, Elaine. I'll start with the reason why those roads were closed, because we were inundated with too much traffic, safety concerns, garbage, trespassing on property owners' lands, abusive behaviors. We had the OPP had to restrain some people. It was just bedlam. And it was supposed to be under the stay-at-home order, and all these people are not wearing masks, are in groups of 10 to 15 sometimes, shoulder to shoulder, and there was no responsibility that they were protecting themselves or the people around them. So we did an emergency road closure due to the situation with COVID. This is a temporary measure so that we can have the opportunity to allow the park staff to figure out what's the right thing for that ecologically sensitive area and what is the right entrances that should be allowed for just hiking and not parking. So it's a very complex issue, but we are certainly not doing this in a permanent nature. We're trying to see what happens when the next phase of opening Ontario and how it's going to affect it. So we're taking things quite seriously. We're trying to protect not only our community and our residents, but we're also trying to protect the environment. So we are not considering that we're going to keep this in force for the whole summer. We're hoping once things open and become more relaxed and people are getting their second doses of vaccine and the numbers are obviously dropping. So it's probably going to be another 2 to 4 weeks and then the closures will be lifted. So unless something changes from council, so any other council members? Sharon?
Oh, okay. I think, Elaine, you could talk to some of the people where your office is, talk to some of the neighbors around there and ask them how they felt about this last weekend, because we have had nothing but thank you from the people who actually live in the hamlet. And as far as the parking at Mono Center, the parking lot there is, as far as I'm concerned, local people can use it, but it's not going to be open to the GTA. It's not if I have to lie down in front of it. It just, we cannot welcome all these people into this. We are not built for having thousands of people coming through. And they were redirected to Earl Rowe Park because I think in the middle of the afternoon, they still had 500 spaces for cars. And so they were rerouted to there so they could enjoy their time walking. If you go to the park to walk every day and you park on the third line was chosen specifically because it can take the wear and tear. That's why they closed the second line, because it was very detrimental to the environment in that area. It's very fragile and it has been abused and needs to be left alone. And I agree, local people should be able to get into the park and we'll work that one out. Thank you.
Thank you. Ed?
Well, just to add to what Sharon and you have said, Elaine, We did pass a bylaw for no parking on one side of the third line and on the second line, but we left a gap that could hold about, I don't know, 50 cars. And we did a small area on the 25 side road. Then when the crowds got large and we talked to Ontario Parks, and it is their park, they manage it, they asked us, and this was in our consideration when we revised the bylaw, they wanted no parking all around the park. So the only entrance for people would be the third line. Now, it's their park, and that's their decision in terms of how many people they think the park can handle. But that certainly was a factor when we introduced the very draconian no parking laws, 2 kilometers along 25 side road, both sides of the third line, and now the second line, we removed the gap that we had left open there. And so again, it's partly our response to Ontario Parks.
Okay, thank you. Ralph, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. So I agree with the points that Heron and you and Fred have made, but I also agree with your sentiment, Elaine, about the effect on businesses, and we did talk about that. I think, to be fair, we have to fine tune this, and we will. And we recognize that you and Mono Clifton and other B&Bs have an interest in having people having good access to your place. So we will fix this somehow or other. Now, the issue with the parking in the community center was that it was really horrible. It wasn't just full; people were all over the grass, and this made that we had an additional number of people going into the park that are walking in. Our focus has been on trying to make a safer road system for us to protect the park. We know that the park cannot tolerate a massive number of people walking in it. And so that's been our focus. And the amount of Mono people, many of them were getting, Mono Center were getting ready to leave. They just had it with that. So I think that, yeah, we've used a heavy hand, and I think that was appropriate. But we do need to fine tune it, and I'm very aware of your concerns with respect to your business, and we will fix that. We also are concerned about the local people and their use of our park facilities, because now it appears to be difficult for local persons to access the park. As you probably know, Parks Ontario has brought in a reservation system for 17 parks, including Mono Park, and you have to reserve ahead of time. We don't know exactly how many they're going to allow in, but I looked at the website today, and there are 3 to 4 hour periods throughout the day, and you reserve one of those. That is something that Parks Ontario have set up to try to protect all their parks, and I personally applaud it. I think it's a good thing. But we have to make it possible for the people who live in Mono, and particularly those that live around it, who are used to going to the park and walking at the part of their life, that they can still access it.
Okay, thank you. John?
Elaine, I think the bottom line here is that we were completely overwhelmed and caught unawares by what was going to happen. We had experienced, obviously, very high numbers of people visiting the park around the time of Thanksgiving and maybe one other time in the course of the year, but it was developing as a pattern weekend after weekend. We had to do something. Yes, I guess it is heavy-handed, but I think it's worked. I suspect that the road closures will be the first thing that will be reconsidered, and they seem to be working right now. But we've been playing whack-a-mole, and as much as if we prohibit parking one place, it pops up somewhere else. The last weekend was an example where I think for the first time, the word had got out that Mono Cliffs can only handle a certain number of people, and that maybe before you leave Toronto, you should check to see whether or not the parking lot is full. And to Parks Ontario's credit, they've been tweeting out that the parking lot is full, sometimes as early as 9:15 in the morning. Some people have wondered why we can't simply create more parking. I can assure you, you couldn't create a lot big enough to handle what we've experienced over the past 4 weeks, even if you wanted to. The private lot in front of your place of business is well signed for customers and business patrons only. I dare say you wouldn't want that lot to be completely filled up any more than people trying to access the tennis courts wanted to see the community center lot totally filled up and unable to accommodate the people who are playing a game of tennis. So it is a balance. I think we're going to work out a system where local residents, members of the Bruce Trail, members of the tennis club can have access to places where they can park and enjoy the amenities as they have in the past. And that, coupled with the Parks Ontario reservation system, hopefully will bring some sanity to this.
Okay, thank you. And also further discussion is going to be had about the issue of potential parking permits, etc., in this meeting. So, okay, so are you all right with the responses you've gotten so far, Elaine, and understand that we aren't drawing a line in the sand?
I understand, but you have to appreciate, when I spoke to Jason, who owns the Mono Cliffs, they are really feeling it, and they have been feeling it throughout the pandemic. But they even were, selling hot dogs and wraps and things off the porch, and now nobody's walking by their restaurant, so nobody's buying. So you have to appreciate, the same as my businesses walk in, there's nobody walking by, nobody's going to walk in. And I didn't ask for 100% change. I said we have to try to find somewhere in the middle. I really appreciate the fact that we did have issues with safety and roads, parking on the road, etc. So that's all I'm asking for, is to look at a 50-50 split and try to, a compromise for everybody.
Yeah. And that,
Thank you.
We hear that loud and clear, and this is what we've been trying to do in order to get to the point where things are under control again. So, all right. So thank you for those kind of questions. So now we're on to delegations. The first one we have is Glen White from Blue Heron Residence on street parking. And sorry for the delay in hearing your petition, Glen, but welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I also want to just first off actually thank Fred Nix and Fred Simpson and the CVC, and also Mike Dunmore while we're at it. The response and the in it together feeling has been present since day one, and Fred Nix has been very responsive. Fred Simpson as well after. So I just wanted to first off say thank you, and the CVC as well. Bill, your staff in talking with me over the past year about this issue. Secondly, I want to introduce co-delegate Mark Train, who's a neighbor of mine. He's on the call as well, and he kind of represents the original ownership on Blue Heron. He's been here since the time of build, whereas I'm a newer resident who came from Toronto about 4 years ago now. So I hope that offers a more complete perspective when when I'm talking through the petition that we have for you. So it's a good segue, that past conversation, and actually I took note of what Elaine said when she mentioned balance and finding a middle ground. So obviously on Blue Heron Drive, it's a residential dead-end cul-de-sac in a community that could be described as a suburb, really, part of Mono. And what our petition describes and puts forward to you as councillors is to get a no parking bylaw implemented on our end of Blue Heron. The reason we're requesting this, and I say we, it's more than just me and Mark as a delegation. In my process, it's been about a year long now, I've been speaking to all of the residents within that area of my petition. So in the letter, if you want to reference it, there's an aerial photo of the end of the street that's in question here. And I've spoken to every single resident, went door to door, got email signatures from the ones who wanted to support me. And essentially it was everyone signing on. That leads me to the process that we took. So first it was the neighborhood outreach and describing the issue that we were noticing. So Mark and I are actually situated right beside a public works access egress that just so happens to have a walking path into the CVC. So I'm on one side of that, Mark Train is on the other side of that. And over the years, we've really noticed a misuse of that access way. The intention of that access, although there is a lane wide enough for road traffic, and that was by design because it's again an emergency ingress egress. So it's a walking path into the CVC. But what we've been noticing, and it's getting worse. So in the 3-4 years I've been here, and in the time that Mark's been here, we have non-resident traffic coming in, seeking free parking, and they're setting up shop on our road and bringing people into the CVC park. I thought initially it was just neighborhood people, but slowly got to realize this was people seeking out, they were destination seekers, either bypassing the fee associated with entering a prescribed parking lot for the CVC, or just they found a little bypass, they found a little hack to this. So they come here daily. On weekends it's worse. When the sun is shining it's even worse. Long weekends are atrocious. And what that has yielded is essentially an unmanaged, uncontrolled parking lot that was a quiet, dead-end, cul-de-sac residential street. Now we all have, there's a number of the families who signed on to this have children. I have 3 myself, and they're all young, the bike riding age, out with friends, and it's become a safety concern. More than once I've had to almost by the neck pull back one of my children because a car is ripping through the cul-de-sac, going like this on the phone, trying to find free parking that they've heard about to the CVC. So the issue is real. It's getting worse. And my process that led me here today was, I think, fair. And I spoke to first the CVC, and it was kind of out of their hands, really. And then I spoke to Mike about this and a couple other issues. And the result was, go talk to your neighbors, and Fred Nix as well. It kind of guided me in that direction. And it was loud and clear, my response back from the neighbors. So that's when I wrote the letter and got this petition forward. And Mark was happy to join in the delegation to offer his perspective as well. But before I actually turn it over to Mark so he can offer his comments, I hope the request of ours is clear. So we're just looking for a no parking bylaw that's enforceable on just this end of Blue Heron, and that will solve those destination seekers, the people coming to try to usurp the appropriate channels for entering the Island Lake CVC Park. It's not only the health and safety concerns that are real, it's the litter, it's the loitering. We have people set up shop here waiting for friends. I just last weekend had a couple of people come walk by my house through the path, and I overheard the conversation, and they were guiding people in from out of town, saying, no, it's over here. Come by drive by that fire hydrant, park here, I'm waving at you. So it's becoming a bit of an issue. We've noticed increased litter on our road, and it's now almost a traffic-filled road, even though it's a dead end. So I hope that clarifies what we're looking for. And the second part of it is an ability to have the actual residents of Blue Heron to still if they need to, allow their car to be parked on the road. So some sort of permitting process. Like, I mean, I was talking to Fred Simpson, and here I am, the guy from the city, saying, yeah, you know, in Toronto, we just had a web-based thing. You type in your license plate, and that got my car a permit. And he described, okay, we're not really there at that level. So I just would like that part of it to be entertained, that we can have the actual residents here, you know, leave their car on the road if they need to, or have a contractor come in who's parking on the road. But the primary request before council and you is to get that no parking signage and bylaw implemented to help us with our health and safety issue we're having on the road. But that's all I have. And Mark, I don't know if you want to say a few words as well as the more senior, you know, person who's been here longer.
Thank you, Glenn. There's just a couple of things I would like to add to that. And Glenn covered it fairly well. I have lived on Blue Heron Drive for 16 years now, and since the inception of our subdivision, at that time there was, you know, at that time there was only one entranceway into our subdivision, and that was along First Line Mono from Highway 9. And if there was a serious car accident occurring at Highway 9 and First Line Mono, there would be no way for the residents of our subdivision to enter or leave the subdivision. And for that reason, the emergency road was constructed through Island Lake Conservation Area to Blue Heron Drive. Now, the problem that's occurred is that that particular emergency road is very, very visible on Google Maps and on Apple Maps as well. So people who are coming to the park, if they just get a peripheral of the park on their phone where they can see the park, they can see all around the outside of the park, and they can see our subdivision, and they can see entrances into the park. So we get a lot of people that are non-residents of the area that come here, and they park along Blue Heron Drive at that emergency road exit and utilize it as a entrance into the park. I think that's the only thing that I wanted to add extra to it, Glenn.
Okay, thank you. Is there any questions from council members to the two delegates?
Well,
yes, Fred.
I don't actually have a question. I have a comment, because I worked back and forth with Glen and Fred Simpson on this. I think the request is quite reasonable, and from council's perspective, it really only requires a minor tweaking of our no parking bylaw. It would add two new things to the bylaw. One is this time of day concept, and I think Glen's idea was to make the no parking times coincide with when the conservation area is open, so the hours are straight. And then in discussing it with Glen, there's going to be the occasion, Glen just mentioned having a contractor or somebody, but also somebody could have a birthday party. Those driveways, Glen, if I'm not mistaken, probably only hold 4 cars, maybe at most 5. And there's going to be the odd occasion when somebody's going to have a party where they've got 6 or 7 other cars. And if you can't park at any time, let's say on a Saturday at that end of Blue Heron Drive, it's going to make it difficult for the residents. So the other new concept in our bylaw would have to be some permit system. And we're already talking about that in other no parking zones. So in any case, in talking with Fred Simpson, I think all of these things are doable. I'm not sure the exact mechanics, but Fred Simpson is a pretty smart guy, and he can figure that out.
Okay, thank you. John, you had your hand up?
A couple of things. I see Bill Lister's on the is part of the meeting. Bill, I have a question for you. Does the CVC overtly advertise this as an entrance to the park? Is it on any of your maps? Is it part of any of your promotion?
No, again, early on when Glenn brought it to our attention, that was one of the first things that we did is that we took that off our maps. And again, I just want to add that, you know, just to remind everyone that we do have a tri-party agreement for access to the Vicky Barron Lakeside Trail. And that was one of the agreed upon access points. And a reminder that the town of Mono and town of Orangeville do pay a maintenance fee for the residents to gain access to the park. And Glenn is correct. The full intention was for local residents to gain access to the conservation area by active transportation.
Thank you. And mindful of the fact that that agreement dates from a much different time than what we're confronting now. My question for Glenn and Mark would be, and this has been brought to my attention, a concern that if we were to create no parking in the vicinity of your homes, it would simply push the problem down the road. Where do we stop in terms of a no parking zone?
Yeah, thanks for the question. So I did try to think about that when I was developing the petition and going to the neighbors surrounding the area. If you take a look on the petition, I did put an aerial photo, and there's a natural division between this end of Blue Heron, which is the river, kind of northeast, I guess you will, and then the cul-de-sac being the other end of that. So that section is kind of a natural divided out area, and that's where I was focusing on that length of Blue Heron. And I feel that, you know, never underestimate the laziness of and convenience of people. I think if it's any further out than that, no one is going to park to gain access to there. It's just too inconvenient. I think they'd maybe perhaps it would be enough for them to go to an actual CVC parking lot. So getting in on the Huron Ontario entrance and actually using and paying the fee. I think it makes it inconvenient enough. The section I described in the letter.
Glenn, just to share with you our experience on the third line,
sure.
North of the Parks Ontario lot, we had determined a certain length of roadway north of that lot to be no park. And we discovered was people were prepared to park as far north as the 25th Side Road, and indeed along the 25th Side Road and north of the 25th Side Road on the third line, and walk 2 or 3 kilometers to get into the park. So that's been our experience with this, and it's a struggle. It's a struggle. I just raised that. I'm not saying that I oppose your idea, but I just question whether or not you can make a big enough no parking zone that you actually solve the problem, or that you simply push it further down the road. And I'll just leave it at that.
That's fair. And I think Mark, do you have something to add?
Yeah, I think it's a bit of a different situation from Mono Center. On Blue Heron, where we live, there is an alternative place to park. So people can go into Mono or out to Island Lake Park, and Bill has it set up very, very well that they can accommodate a lot of cars. At Mono Center, the people were forced to park out on the side roads and on the lines because there was no available parking within the park. So it's a different scenario. Ours is more convenience. If people find that it's not convenient, then they will drive to the park and park inside Island Lake.
Okay. Mark,
And just so you're aware, Mark Train, that this last weekend, it's actually reversed for the weekend before, because now what's happening, anybody that wants to go to any park, they want to access Island Lake Family Park instead of paying to go through the gate at CVC. So they're parking in that lot and it's causing great upset to the residents around there and on First Line. They're parking on First Line, they're blocking people's driveway. It's just, I guess COVID's gone to everybody's brain. They're not paying attention to the safety of the roads or the safety of the neighborhood. So we have that issue to still clean up also, trying to figure out how we deal with that particular area and how much parking is made available and how it is accessed. So anybody else from council? Yes, Ro.
Mark and Glenn, thanks for your presentation. You've indicated that it's a worsening problem, but I wonder if you could give us some numbers. Can you tell us how many people are parked on there on an average weekend? Or do you have some photographs of the other areas where we've had parking problems? Usually people send a photograph which shows anything up to 40 or 50 cars parked along the side of the road. And we don't have any documentation from you. That's all I'm asking for.
Yeah, and I have taken many photos over the past year and a half, and you know, sent them to, I believe I sent them to Fred Nixon occasionally. I have some more from this past weekend. So I did start taking photos, knowing that this is kind of the best way to describe it to someone else. So our road doesn't fit, like we're in a different context than monocliffs. Like it gets to be like 20 cars. But if you imagine, if you take a look at that area and shove 20 cars in front of, you know, 3 or 4 houses on both sides of the road, and that's the extent of it, but it's getting worse. So when I first moved in, it was 5, 6 cars, and now it's 20. The other thing is the people seeking out the free parking. So not necessarily parking all at once, but it's the people using the road as this like never-ending cycle of cars driving in and out, literally not paying attention to what they're doing and looking for this access. So it's the threat of just the increased traffic, the volume coming to Blue Heron, dead end, to find this access. But I do have photos, and I mean, I could submit them to you. I think that would probably be the most effective way, instead of me trying to fumble around and bring them up right now.
So if I can add to that, Your Honor, so when you're saying this, it would be common for you to have 20 cars parked from the cul-de-sac back at one time on the weekends. That's what you're saying?
Yeah, that's like that's a high day. Yeah.
Okay. Is there anything further for Glenn and Mark? Seeing none, then how would you like to proceed with this item, council members? Do you want recommendations from staff in terms of feasibility of the parking passes, etc., and no parking signs from Mr. Dunmore? Yes, Fred Nix.
Could we ask Fred Simpson to come back with a proposal as to how the no parking bylaw could be amended? I think Fred knows how to do this. Is that okay, Fred Simpson? Go ahead.
Absolutely. Just to clarify, so you're looking for a proposal from staff on both the extent of no parking zones and how a permitting system might work?
Well, I think Glenn has suggested the extent of the no parking zone. What we need from you is what should the wording be in our no parking bylaw that says you can't, we're introducing a time of day no parking bylaw, and that somehow residents would have access. You've got to figure out the mechanics of this. I mean, would a phone call and a name and an address be good enough when we issue a permit? But for those occasions when some residents on Blue Heron need some extra parking on the road, there must be some mechanical way we can do that in the bylaw.
So to answer the first question, our bylaw is already set up such that we do have the ability to create restricted parking areas based on both time of day and maximum amount of time. So that's already built into our bylaw. We've not utilized it to date, so that's the easy part of the equation. The on-demand permitting system is a little more complex. As Mr. White alluded, we don't really have the ability to create a fully automated system that could be validated in any way to ensure that they were actual residents of the area submitting them, which means they would have to be manually handled. Once they can be submitted online, but they'd have to be manually processed and a parking permit issued. So the amount of time that takes may not be satisfactory to the residents, because if that means 5 days or so, that might be too long of a time lag between request and when they were hoping to receive it. Another method might be a permanent parking pass that is issued to these residents, and they have X number of passes and they use them as they need them.
I knew you could figure out a way of doing this, Fred.
Mark Early.
Recognizing full well that you'll have the same request throughout the municipality for the other areas that have been locked down with no parking.
Yeah, I was going to throw that in, Mark, because the same subject is going to come up at a later point. But we are going to have other requests, just as we did from the Bruce Trail clubs for their maintenance people to have parking permits. There's going to be other requests. I know that.
Okay. Mark, did you?
I was just going to say, if you're going to be having that general discussion, then you may want to do it all together and deal with the other areas of the municipality as well. I don't think this is a one-off down at Blue Heron.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right, and that would be considered in terms of what process that is brought forward from staff. Yes, Fred Nix.
Yeah, with respect, yeah, we could treat this as a general topic sometime later on, but in fairness to the Blue Heron residents, this has been on the horizon for almost a year, right, Glen? Let's get this one off the ground, maybe as a trial to see how it works. Let's figure out the time of day. It's already in the bylaw. We can do that. Let's figure out, what do we do? Give each resident 10 parking permits for a year or something like that. But we can figure out the mechanics for this one and have it up and running before July comes.
Okay. Mike Dunmore.
Thank you, Your Worship. And Glenn, I think we've been dealing with this for probably more than a year. We softly started to talk probably just when you moved in. I think it started, right? But I think I understand what council's commitment may be here. And I just had a couple questions for Glenn and perhaps Mark. Mark Train, are you experiencing any after hours entry into the park at that location?
No, that's actually why I put the time of use in the petition originally, thinking it would be the least disruptive to status quo. No, it really is lined up with CVC hours.
So working with sorry, Glenn, go ahead.
No, that was it. So to answer your question, yeah. Go ahead,
It's Mark. It tends to coincide with daytime hours. So there are some people, even after, like, there's certain times of the year, Bill, where the park closes at earlier than it gets dark, and then people still come while you're closed. So more goes along with daylight hours that that people park and go in.
So working with Bill Lidster with respect to the opening and close hours of the park, and perhaps extending that a half hour before and after, would be satisfactory?
Yes.
Yeah, and if the permitting system, if we're a pilot for that and that gets off the ground and works, then really it could be all hours. But it sounds like you have the mechanism in place to put time of no parking. So in the petition, I put the maximum hours, so summer maximum hours for no parking all year round. And that would cover what Mark was talking about, where sometimes in the winter the park closes earlier, then the people come. So.
And that's great, and we can work with the clerks and the CAO with respect to that permitting process. Madam Mayor, if you wouldn't mind, I would like to make a plug for Public Works, though. All contractors are required road occupancy permits from the Public Works Department, so they shouldn't be on the road anyway without a permit. So if you're planning on doing work, get a road occupancy permit.
Okay. Thank you for that. Ralph?
Your Honor, I'm not opposed to this idea, but we haven't heard from anybody who's on the opposite side of the door, and Bill lives there, sitting there. I'm wondering, Bill, from your perspective, you have, what's your understanding of this as being an issue of people going in for free, and to what extent? Have you been measuring it? Have you been able to count people?
Again, we haven't been counting them, Ralph, because it's a designated sanctioned access point. I'm sure we have some data on the number of people, but it's one of the lower used access points. I know that for sure.
Okay. So I would like to suggest, Sharon, did you have something you wanted to say?
John had his hand up first.
Okay, John?
Sorry, I had to change spots in the house here. Bill mentions the designated sanction entrances. I think this whole issue should be up for discussion. And I know there's an agreement, but this is, when you get right down to it, whether it be the first line off the Island Lake Family Park, or whether you get off the sanctioned entrance on Blue Heron, these are becoming problems. And I think there is big a problem for the CVC as they are for us, in the same way that these entrances into Mono Cliffs Park are a problem for Parks Ontario. So I just think that we should have a serious discussion about this, and maybe the time has come that we do something about these porous borders.
Okay, Mark Early, the year that this agreement was finally solidified with us helping with maintenance fees?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it was more than 6-7 years ago. I don't know about Bill, what his comments would be.
Yeah, that's about right. And again, I would be really hesitant to close those access points off. Before that trail was done, we had an access point up at Purple Hill, and I probably spent $500 replacing locks to try to keep people out there. And as soon as we made that access point, that community supported us, and it worked out really well. I truly believe if we try to shut these access points off, it's going to create more problems for us than solve them.
Okay. Sharon?
I guess what bothers me is these access points were put in place, as far as I know, for the community to have access to the park. And it's way beyond that now. These people who are driving down to Blue Heron are not, they're not Mono people. They're not Dufferin County people. They're from somewhere else because they've seen it on a map. And that I find really disturbing. I'd like to put up a sign that says go home, but I guess we're not allowed to do that. So there may be other things that can be done as well. I think I'll wait and pass those on to Fred Simpson because I don't want to make y'all laugh.
Okay. So I would propose that we ask staff to bring this back to our next council meeting if that is potentially doable, Fred Simpson, and we make a determination on what we can do to resolve this particular problem in Blue Heron. And if we have to have further discussion on what other areas that we need to consider also, then we can have it at that time. Is everybody content with that on council? Okay, thank you. Yes, Mark.
So that's to bring back a no parking bylaw with the other caveats that Fred Nix has suggested.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. So thank you very much, Glenn and Mark. Stay tuned. We will go at this again at our next council meeting, which is June 22nd. And that's a daytime meeting. Okay, so our next delegation have been patiently waiting. Sorry for the delay to Trish and Darcy. And so please present your request for noise mitigation on Hockley Road.
Okay, thank you. Yes, thanks a lot. It sounds like mono has been discovered, and our issue is in part because of that as well, I'm sure. But thanks for giving us this opportunity to present the concerns that we are having on this road. We actually would love to invite any councillor to come and sit in our backyard on a Saturday afternoon, and they can experience it all at firsthand. The motorcycles just scream down the road at terrific speed, any time of the day, often even into the evening, late at night, but especially on weekends. And the noise truly is deafening. You know, you have to stop your conversations when you're talking with people. And the other issue that's becoming increasingly a problem on the road is the large transport trucks that just barrel down the road at great speed. And that seems to be a really increasing problem. They're constant now. And the situation is dangerous and incredibly upsetting for the people on this residential road. And so we did do a petition, and we delivered it to all the mailboxes along Hockley Road from 10 to Airport. And to date, we have received actually 53 signed petitions that with many with at least 2, sometimes more signatures on them, representing probably at least 80 individuals. And several people have called us. They want to vent at great length. Very, very concerned. We know that several people have written to Mayor Ryan as well, and have copied us on those letters that are very heartfelt and very passionate. And people are basically outraged, and they're concerned for their mental health. They've expressed that the situation is causing them to consider moving. Several people have said that, and I know you're all aware of this issue, but I hope that by doing this, it's demonstrated how serious the problem actually is for the people on this road. And we know there's no easy answer. You know, we've talked to several of the councillors already. We know this is not an easy issue, but we do have some ideas, and we hope that they'll be given some serious consideration. And obviously, most of them do involve the OPP or the county or both, but we do trust that Mono can help us with this as we try and move these things forward. And you know, often people say, well, Mono can't do anything. Well, one thing Mono can do is to create a bylaw, a noise bylaw that's specific to motorcycles. Caledon has done this. It limits the sound of the exhaust to certain decibel levels and so on. And it requires a sound level meter that the OPP administers. We know, again, this is not a perfect solution, but it does seem like it might be worth a try. If we could stop motorcycles with like a ride program sort of idea where they're pulled over and tested, and many of them have illegal muffler systems that perhaps could be ticketed. You know, I think I guess what one would hope is that the word gets out that this is a problem on the road and it's maybe worth going elsewhere. Okay, you're on.
No, my turn. Where's the camera? It's there. Hi, everyone. On weekends, a consistent, but basically we're asking for more of a police presence on the road. I know it's the weekend most is a problem, but we very rarely have OPP on the road over the weekends. I know that they're very busy up on Mono Am at school all during the week, which is great, but we don't, people, that seems to be a gone issue. Like people they do go slow through there now automatically, but it's just in our area, they just race. Most effective will be regular blitzes with radar guns at specific locations, with OPP officers stationed at Highway 10 and Airport Road, where motorcycles can be detected for speed, noise, and illegal modifications to their bikes. This would deter both motorcycles and cars from speeding. Would also be a great addition to the town coffers.
One of our other suggestions is that we know, especially as everybody's been talking about, everyone coming up here to hike, it's really busy in that Bruce Trail parking lot on at Second Line, and perhaps we've had several people calling us and mentioning how dangerous that stretch is from the parking lot to the Bruce Trail entrance, and very scary to have the big huge trucks and the motorcycles screaming by. So what about the idea of a community safety zone that's, I don't know, 1 kilometer on either side of the Bruce Trail entrance that we can actually install photo radar? I understand that it has to be a community safety zone to have photo radar. And again, we could raise some money ticketing people that are speeding and just reduce the attractiveness of this road for people.
So one idea we think would be very effective is basically close Hockley Road on summer weekends and for pedestrians and bicycle traffic only. Local and also permitted to the closest line. Well, at first this may seem impossible, but it can be done. It happens. The City of Toronto's done it. Ottawa has done it on major roads. The road closure can be marketed as very positively as a community recreation option that might attract tourism as well.
We don't really want them.
I hope you'll consider the idea seriously, just closing the road, just local traffic on the weekends.
We don't need Hockley Road to get into Orangeville.
Yeah. I know there are logistical challenges, but we believe this can be overcome with time. People would adjust.
Stop signs at several of the intersections along the road might be a solution. It seems to have reduced the traffic on Five Side Road because there's probably about 4 stop signs along the way. And it presumably would be a fairly simple solution to put stop signs in. I don't quite know what's involved, but it sounds like maybe it could work. And of course, reducing the speed limit on the road is an option, but we know that unless that's really well patrolled, it probably would be ineffective. But perhaps that combined with some of the other ideas of increased police presence and radar and so on, reducing the speed limit to 50 or 60 might help. Right now it's what about I don't know, 9 kilometer or maybe 11 kilometer stretch of road with not a single stop sign, and it's got all the curves that a motorcycle wants. We have to make the road not so so pleasant for racing. right now it's perfect.
It's a residential road, basically. You know, there's lots, many houses. They're right on the road. And these poor people, I don't know how they put up. We're lucky. We're back about 400 feet, but there's a lot of houses that are right on the road, as you know, Fred. And they go through. It's hell on the weekend. It really is. So I guess
And we know that it's, we're talking about increased costs for Mono with most or all of these ideas. But I guess we're feeling like it's money that has to be spent. It just has to change. And I really do believe that people would be very supportive of an increase in their tax base or donations or something. And so we're very, very concerned and really would love to see some serious efforts made here to make our roads work. And we do wonder seriously about some way, why are all these transport trucks on the road? Why are they not on the highways? It's hard to understand why that has increased so dramatically, and whether something can be done about that.
I just wanted to about the transport trucks. I'm very brief. I know in the springtime there's a restriction on heavy transport trucks because of the ice melt, whatever it is. And could that not be used year round? No heavy trucks, no heavy trucks on this road. It's got all kinds of different options. They don't need to use our roads, the shortcut they're using. So surely there must be some way we can stop giant transport trucks from using this road, the residential road.
Yeah. Well, basically we have three huge issues. One is the noise, which is so distressing. It's extremely distressing.
Two.
Secondly is the safety and issues around the dangerousness of the speeding and the reckless driving that we see all the time on the road. And the third is these transport trucks.
Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you very much. Any members of council have questions of Trish and Darcy? Fred?
I really appreciated your presentation, Trish and Darcy. And as you know, since I'm a neighbor of yours, and I've lived there longer than you have, I've been putting up with this problem for over 45 years. In fact, there's been no single issue that I've had more contact from Hockley Road residents than the issue we're raising tonight. However, I'm not optimistic that there's much we can do. That isn't saying we shouldn't try it. On your first issue, the noise, and I, with respect, I think they're actually noisier when they go by my house than your house, because they come around that curve and they just
wind it out.
Yes, I did a bit of looking. I'm not an expert on this, but I think the motorcycle noise is now regulated by 3 levels of government. The federal government controls the importation and selling of new vehicles, and they put a limit of, I'm going to go on memory here, 85 to 92 decibels for an idling motorcycle. That's a new bike. So I went online, I was looking at Harley Davidson. Now this is probably an operating bike, not an idling bike. Those bikes are coming off the production line and they're producing 110 decibels, which, since it's an exponential scale, that's an awfully lot louder noise.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that federal regulation means anything or whether it's being enforced. By the way, you talk about checking the bikes for illegal equipment being added to it. All I could find, the only province in Canada, I think, that makes it illegal to change the manufacturer's muffler is Quebec. I don't believe Ontario does. I could be wrong. I couldn't find anything in Ontario regulations that says you can't put on one of these custom exhaust pipes that make so much noise. In terms of the provincial level of government, the Highway Traffic Act, Section 75(4), does regulate motorcycle noise, at least to the extent it says that it's unlawful for the driver at any time to cause the motor vehicle to make unnecessary noise. Well, John Quillen can maybe clear me up on this, because I tried to find out whether there's ever been a ticket issued under that section of the Act. I doubt that there has. And at the local level, I reread our noise bylaw today, and Mark, you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but first of all, I get confused. You and I get confused by parts of our municipal noise bylaw. I think there's enough teeth in it now to regulate motorcycle noise. The problem is enforcement. Like, we have no means to actually say to someone, that bike is too noisy. We don't have the equipment to measure it. We don't have the staff that can actually stop a motorbike. We can't do it. Now, I did read up on the Caledon bylaw, and there's a few other municipalities. Oakville has one. I think the standard is about 92 decibels that they allow. Toronto has one. Edmonton has one. Fredericton, New Brunswick has a bylaw. But when Caledon first introduced their bylaw, this is back in 2010, 2011, sometime back then, they did a blitz, and they stopped several thousand motorbikes. And what was surprising, I think I'm going on memory, Trish, and you know how old I am. Only about 20 of them were exceeding the Caledon noise bylaw. So I think they were surprised that the numbers were that low. In any case, I'm not saying we shouldn't try on the noise issue. I'm just trying to tell you I'm not optimistic we can do anything about it. On the speed issue, I make one very simple point. I am not in favor of lowering the speed limit. It's now 70 kilometers an hour, except in front of the school and when you get in the village. And for this simple reason, people are breaking the 70 kilometer an hour speed limit. And if we lower it to 50, the people who break the speed limit law are still going to break it. My problem with that, and John, maybe you can help us with this. My understanding is the OPP cannot chase a motorcycle on the Hockley Road for safety reasons. I could be wrong on that, but that's what I've been told. So I don't know how we do it. Maybe we could ask John on the Police Services Board to bring this problem up. The only way, John, that I think you could do anything is have someone, say, at the fourth line with a radar gun checking speeds and then radioing that ahead to someone at Airport Road. And when the bike gets there,
That's exactly what we want to have happen.
And so that gets down to the town, how much resources the town has in getting the OPP to do this. We've already increased our OPP budget this year. Maybe we can do it again. But John, could maybe you at least bring this up at the Police Services Board and see 1, 2, 3 days a year, particularly on holiday weekends, if we can have a bit of enforcement of this is the speed issue of motorcycles. They, without exaggeration, Trish, when they go past your house, heading east and come around the corner, I'm out working in the garden, and they're going past my property at 110, 120 kilometers an hour. That's in a 70 kilometer an hour zone. I do agree with you, Darcy, that you rarely, not never, but rarely see an OPP officer on the weekends on Hockley Road. During the week, we'll see them fairly regularly up by Mono Amaret's public school, but we don't see them on Hockley Road very often. And I think that's simply a question of resources. They've got several very dangerous roads that they have to look after, Highway 10 and Airport Road. And quite frankly, they're doing a fantastic job on those roads. I think last year, John, 50 stunt drivers or something on Airport Road? I think it just comes down to a question of resources. However, I'll shut up now. I just want to say I'm very sympathetic to what you're presenting. I'm a bit of a pessimist in terms of how we solve the problem.
Okay. Ralph?
Your Honor, I'd like to make a point and a suggestion. My point is that the complaints that Trish and Darcy and the other 70 or 80 people on the Hockley Road have made are very valid. I think this is one of the jewels of Mono is the Hockley Valley, and people can't enjoy the peace and tranquility and beauty of it without a motorcycle interrupting their conversation. Then we've got a problem. And I have sat in the backyard of Trish and Darcy's and stopped talking when motorcycles went by. So it is a big problem. And I know Fred has thought about this for a long time, and he's pessimistic that we can do something. And maybe we can't. But I have a suggestion, and it's a two-pronged approach. I did speak today to Laura Hall, the clerk of the town of Howell, and we had a good discussion about what they had done and the issues that they had. And she said that she'd be quite pleased to talk to our staff and to inform them a bit more. My suggestion is the first prong is that we investigate, our staff investigators, what has been done in other municipalities, particularly in Caledon and in Toronto, because Toronto has set this thing and tried to deal with it as well. Find out what they have done and what has worked for them. And the second suggestion is that the council direct the Police Services Board to examine the suggestions that Patricia and Darcy have made and other possible options and come up with some solutions for managing this problem. We can't do it here in council right now. We could talk a lot of various ideas, but we really need to have a group sit down and do this. And as somebody else previously mentioned, the Police Services Board, I think, is the appropriate place for this. To this end, if you would allow me, Your Honor, I did prepare a motion which I sent to Fred Simpson. I suspect he's got it now, which outlines these two-pronged approach. Fred, do you have that motion
there? Councillor Mankville, yes, I see a motion sent at maybe 10 minutes ago. I'm assuming this is the one you're referring to.
That's right.
Okay. Your Worship, would you like me to read this out or hold on to it for further discussion?
Just because John's name has been bantered back and forth with Police Service Board, so if we can let him weigh in on the discussion, and then we'll go back to Ralph's suggestion.
Yeah, this may have a bearing on the motion. Thank you, Trish and Darcy, for your presentation. I'm glad you were delegates here, and we will certainly welcome you at the Police Service Board if you wish to present there as well. This is a problem that has bedeviled us for years, and it is correct that the OPP do not usually engage in chasing down motorbikes, but the suggested approach of a two-person team has in fact been used successfully elsewhere. It does come down to resources, but I think that your appearance before the Police Service Board will bring to the fore the necessity of doing something, if not on a blitz basis, on a semi-regular basis on the Hockley Road. Just going back to the issue of the wording of the Highway Traffic Act, if I can, Fred quite correctly referred to section 75, subsection 4, but section 75, subsection 1 is really the operative one, in as much as it says every motor vehicle or motor-assisted bicycle shall be equipped with a muffler in good working order and constant operation to prevent excessive or unusual noise and excessive smoke, and no person shall use a muffler, cutout, straight exhaust, gutted muffler, Hollywood muffler, and I even know what that actually means, bypass or similar device upon a motor vehicle or motor-assisted bicycle. Now, all of that is to say that there is provision in the HDA for the OPP to lay charges for excessive noise. Whether they do this or not, I think we're going to have to ask them at the Police Services Board. But that would be the most powerful way of dealing with this if they were prepared to do it. And it is that aftermarket tampering with bikes that results in the loudest noises. For instance, taking the catalytic converter out of the assembly is a way that you can soup up your bike. To the question of radar or photo radar, it's true that we could in fact have that now in zones of less than 80 kilometers per hour, but I've been fighting a really lonely battle to try and get the province to permit us to use what they now call automated speed enforcement, i.e. photo radar, anywhere we think we have a problem. And I'm not making much progress. There's a letter on the agenda tonight that proves it, but I'm not going to give up there. The other issue that I'd like to raise is the fact that some of the suggestions you make do impinge upon the authority of the county, because Hockley Road is a county road. I'm perfectly prepared to fight the good fight at the county level, and I know that the mayor will do so as well. But there is a sort of a philosophy at the county level that county roads are thoroughfares for traffic, including large vehicles such as transport trucks. But you raise a really good question about the transport trucks and whether they are gravel trucks or whether they are transport trucks trying to find a way of improving just-in-time delivery. I don't know, but I'm prepared to ask those questions and pursue the matter for you there.
Okay.
Thank you.
So back to Fred Simpson with Ralph's proposed wording for a motion.
Okay, so the motion reads, whereas 77 residents from 51 homes on Hockley Road, west of Airport Road, have presented council with their concerns for motorcycle and vehicle noise. And whereas council recognized that this residential area is one of the jewels of the town of Mono, and whereas residents on Hockley Road are unable to enjoy the peace, tranquility, and safety that is offered by the valley due to the disruption from passing motorcycles and trucks. And whereas there has been efforts by the town of Caledon and the city of Toronto to manage this problem, and whereas in order to deal with the problem, today's delegation has offered possible solutions, including create a noise bylaw to control motorcycle noise, create a consistent radar-supported police presence on Hockley Road, create a community safety zone and installing fixed location radar on Hockley Road, create a summer weekend road closure except for local traffic, employ stop areas at intersections, decrease the weekend speed limit to 35 kilometers per hour has been suggested. Therefore, be it resolved that the town of Mono staff investigate the actions, policies, and successes of the town of Caledon, the city of Toronto, and other jurisdictions in managing motorcycle and truck speeding and noise, and report to council on these actions. And that the Police Service Board consider the suggestions of the delegation and other management options that would lead to a solution to the Hockley Road problems, and make recommendations to council for managing motorcycle, truck speeding, and noise. And that Mono staff bring to council a revision to bylaw number 2004-16, a bylaw to prohibit and regulate noise.
Okay. Yes, John?
Can I propose a friendly amendment to refer to vehicle noise as distinct from motorcycle noise? I think that captures more than simply your motorcycles. It captures trucks. It captures, souped up cars, that kind of thing. It doesn't diminish the power of the motion, but I think it clarifies that you're concerned about vehicle noise.
Okay. All right, Sharon?
I do have a concern here about us making doing this when this really isn't our road. I don't know how we can make all these pronouncements about how it's going to be on that road when it really is a county road. It's not ours to say. As far as the policing goes, that's part of our job to make sure that that's policed properly. But I really have some concerns about us saying what we can do to a road that isn't ours.
Ralph, I just want to interject. I don't think that the motion says this is what we as council want done. If the motion says that they want staff to look into the feasibility of any of these items and the potentials of how they can be put forward, if there is, some of those are within our jurisdiction. If they're not within our jurisdiction, then we will have to proceed to discuss with the county.
Then I would like it to say that, because it doesn't really say that. That if it isn't in our jurisdiction, that we would pursue whoever's jurisdiction it is in.
Ralph, is that considered a friendly amendment or?
I'm not sure. I appreciate what you're saying, Sharon, and I wondered about this too. I do recognize in discussions with other people that we do police this road. It's our Mono police that police the road. So we do have an influence here. Secondly, we do have an influence with the county. We have two people that sit on the county, and if the county knows that the town of Mono is seriously concerned about this, then I think they're obligated and very likely to listen to it. So I don't see a problem with it being a county road and the motion.
Okay, so first of all, yes, Mark Curley.
I was just going to say, just following up on those comments, I think it's unfair to put Mono staff in a position to be commenting on items that are specifically under the jurisdiction of the county, such as speed limits, stop signs, community safety zones. I have no problem with reporting back on a noise bylaw or on the tie-ins with the Police Services Board, but for us to be really truly commenting on stop signs and speed limits on a county road, that's unfair.
Okay, thank you. John?
As I said earlier, I'm happy to advance these suggestions at the county level, both to the committee, the appropriate committee, which I actually sit on, and then to county council if necessary. So I think the intent of the motion is clear, and that is that the Police Service Board does what it can do, and that we do what we can do at the county level. And from the standpoint of policing, obviously Mono has a very large role to play.
Okay, Ralph?
Just to comment, Mark, my intention was not that staff would comment on these actions. It was just that they would report on what other jurisdictions had done. It's an information question.
Okay. Sharon?
That's still not what I heard. And you know, it isn't, I really would like something to be done about the Hockley Road. I travel on that road all the time. That isn't my point. I don't want to put anybody, the staff or anybody else in a bad position. And I think that we have to reword it a bit so that it doesn't do that. If you want them to go and look into other things, then that's one thing. But to sort of be dictating what's going to happen at county, and I'm glad that John will take this to county. I think that that's the appropriate move. And to go to the Police Services Board, that's the appropriate move.
Okay, John?
Madam Mayor? If I could ask Ralph, your intention with regard to Mono staff's investigations, the way I heard it, had more to do with the redesign of a Mono noise bylaw, finding out what was happening in other jurisdictions and maybe coming back with a revised bylaw that could be applied here. I think that's going to happen inevitably because our noise bylaw is already been called out of date by another group that are concerned about a different kind of noise. And in my discussions with the town's prosecutor, I understand that some noise bylaws are getting away from the hard and fast rule with regard to noise measuring devices and getting more closer to the subjective opinion that noise is noise is noise. So I don't know what Fred has to say about that, but I'm sure that revising our noise bylaw was something on his agenda in any event.
Okay, so in interest in trying to move this issue forward, I'm wondering if it would be appropriate to ask Ralph to take more time in the wording to make sure that the intent is clear, and then bring it back at our next council meeting. Is that acceptable,
Your Honor.
Ralph?
Your Honor, I think we're at a disadvantage because I gather Fred's unable to throw it up there so people can read it. The involvement of staff was only in the area of collecting information and report what that information was. And that's what it says here, actually. It says, and report to council on these actions. So I think it's very clear. We're not asking staff to make a recommendation. We're just asking staff to get information, as they have the ability to access this information better than I do, especially. So they may have come up with something that Toronto has done, which is useful, and then we would be able to study that and maybe proceed with it. So I don't see that it really needs any modification, Your Honor.
Okay, Sharon, now that it's up on the screen, so if you go from therefore, the resolve that the town of Mona staff investigate the actions, policies, and successes of the town of Caledon, City of Toronto, and other jurisdictions in managing motorcycle and truck speeding and noise, and report back to council on these, their findings. Would that satisfy Mark?
I think if you took speeding out, it would satisfy us.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
If it's noise, we
I
can
agree
deal
with
with noise. We can't deal with speeding. That's a county jurisdiction, and they're going to need to deal with it.
Okay. So then it should say, and other jurisdictions in managing motorcycle and truck noise, and report back to council on their findings.
Decrease the weekend speed limit? Is that bothersome, Mark?
Yes, Mark?
I don't have a problem bringing back a report as long as council's comfortable with us coming back with a report that says installation of stop signs, you need to go to the county. Reduction of speed limit, you need to go to the county. Closure of the road, you need to go to the county, because that's what our report's going to say. Like, as long as you're recognizing that, we can bring back the evaluation of a noise bylaw.
Yep. So, Ralph, are you comfortable with that rewording on the third last paragraph? Therefore, be it resolved.
Yes, I am, Your Honor, and I'm comfortable with the expectations that Mark has outlined.
Okay, good. So with that, I need someone to move the motion. Ralph, since you did it, would you move the motion?
I do.
Okay, and I need someone to second it. John, you will second? Or
Yes.
did you? Okay. And is there any further discussion on the motion?
So my understanding then is the motion is just as Fred Simpson showed it to us, except the word in the whereas clauses, the word speed has been taken out.
Correct.
Speeding.
Yes, Fred Simpson?
And also the reference to motorcycle and truck noise has been altered to say vehicle noise.
Thank you.
Okay. So everybody understands? Yes? Yeah, okay. So I'm going to call for the vote then. Anyone opposed to this motion? And I'm not seeing anybody, so that's carried. It's unanimous. So thank you very much, Darcy and Trish, for attending tonight, and hopefully we can get some positive information back.
Great, thanks very much.
Thanks for your time.
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Okay, so now we're on to unfinished business. List of unfinished and deferred council business that was circulated with the agenda. Is there anything that needs to be modified, deleted, changed? Yes, John?
Flowing from our last discussion, and Fred will kill me for this, I think we should put a noise bylaw review on here.
Okay. Yes, Mark?
How extensive, Deputy Mayor?
I think you need to have a chat with Paul Dre, okay? I know he has some thoughts on how it can be modified. Let's put it this way. I put it ahead of the priority listed here of looking at our fireworks bylaw.
Yeah, I have spoken with Mr. Dre. I know his opinion, and I think his comments are quite sound on it. Just on that, on the list, I am planning to bring back the fill bylaw in the July meeting, just so you're aware. I think it still says April, but I am planning to bring it in July.
I'm not even suggesting a time for this to come back. I'm just saying that we should start the ball rolling.
Yeah, I was just adding that as another item on the list that should have a date on it. So.
Yeah.
Okay. And so if there's nothing further, the next item is number 2, parking bylaw set fines, increasing parking violation set fines, and the report comes from Fred Simpson. So, Fred, did you have anything further to add to your memo?
So the change to the set fines is pretty straightforward. We've increased any that were $50 to $90, but of course you'll note that I've added a new section to it, to the bylaw, and an applicable set fine that would make it an offense to park on a road that's been closed by order. I've made a recommendation on the fine of $450, though council, of course, is free to set whatever they think is more reasonable. Council might want to note that the other fines in the parking bylaw that are greater than 90 tend to be about $250, not $450.
Okay, any comments? Yes, Fred Nix.
Other than the watermark subdivision, where do we have fire routes?
There's a fire route at the Outdoor Education Center on Second Line, 20 Side Road, I believe. Maybe I better double check that. Mike, can you verify that without looking up the bylaw?
Mark?
Or
I only ask because it seems to me every line and every side road in Mono is a fire route. I mean, if there's a fire down the 4th line, that's the fire truck has to go down the 4th line. And in Watermark, we don't enforce the parking bylaw. So okay.
Mark? Yeah. Mark? Your mic?
Somebody.
Sorry. That's all I have to say on that. We have fire routes on all of our municipal buildings, as well as most of the commercial buildings throughout the municipality as well.
Okay.
And Your Worship, I have looked up the parking bylaw. So the only one on an actual public road is actually at the Monocliffs Outdoor Education Center. So you mentioned Watermark, Councillor Nix, but I don't believe that's an assumed road.
No.
It's under separate bylaw as a fire route bylaw.
Oh. Okay. So we have a motion to consider that we introduce and give the necessary readings to a bylaw to amend bylaw 2000-12 parking bylaw including Schedule 5 set fines, further amended such that the set fine for parking on a highway closed by order B the suggested amount is $450. Yes, John?
I was just going to say that I think using the principle of proportionality, I couldn't go above 250 for that. It would be consistent with, fire outs and other serious parking infractions, but I think 450 might be a bit of a stretch. I'd also note that we do have the authority, if we choose to exercise it, to create a slightly higher or even greatly higher parking penalty for community safety zones. But I'm going to leave that for another day. The big issue is community safety zone on county roads, quite frankly, and that's not for us. But I'm going to pursue that at the county with regard to Mono Center in particular. But I think 250 is where the sweet spot is. I'd like to point out one bit of information that I have about the county of Prince Edward County. A lot in the press about a $450 parking fine on certain roads. And when you read the staff report, that is what they're recommending to the regional senior judge. That is not, as far as I know, yet in effect, although who knows, it may have been signed off on, but I would be very, very surprised. But a lot of people have been quoting that figure as a matter of gospel, suggesting that our $90 is way below what it should be. I think $90 is appropriate at this point. If it turns out that it's not a deterrent, we can always revisit it.
Okay, so the suggestion is 250. And okay, and the rest of the motion, that it be signed by the mayor and the clerk of the town of Mono, sealed and engrossed in the bylaw book. So could I have someone move the motion? Moved by Nix and seconded by Martin. And is there any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll ask if anybody's opposed. Seeing none, that's carried. Okay, so we're now on to new business, and first item is CVC Parking Request, and there's Mr. Litster still hanging in. Thanks for joining us, Bill.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, so
again, so
yeah, go ahead.
yeah, through you, Ryan. I can just put a little context into the letter. The letter's pretty self-explanatory, and I have been talking to Mike and Fred on the side. So with the recent road closures at Mono Cliffs Provincial Park, that has pushed a lot of people on some of the artillery roads around Island Lake. Where we're seeing an influx is at Heron Street North, with people parking along the road and gaining access there. And then we're having stopping issues on Heron Street South, because as you're aware, we have parking capacities during COVID on the park. So we're only running at probably a little bit more than half, less than 3/4 capacity that we're letting in through our front gates to compensate for the people that we know that are going on those trail accesses. So for the past 2 weekends, we've had to close the front gates, and then that's created a lineup out in front of down here in Ontario, up over the hill, out towards Bona Vista. So we've been trying to promote it on our website. We have a capacity meter on our website, so we're asking people to check that. And, even with the capacity limits, we can put them on the website that they're full at 10 o'clock, but people driving from outside the area could already be on their way, and once they get there, they don't find out, so then they want to hang out there and stay, and we want to move them on and send them to another park, one of our other parks that we do have capacity at. With Ontario Parks, the reservation system goes live as of Saturday, I believe. It's May 12th. That's Friday. So it
No,
goes live.
Saturday.
So, oh, it's Saturday. Okay. So we're confident that with that new reservation system, it should help some issues up around there, and then as well as around our neck of the woods, because it will apply at Mono Cliffs and Porks of the Credit Provincial Park. So we're somewhere in between both. So our goal is that we want to try to just keep traffic going and look at putting, and Mike and Fred can probably make the recommendation, but we talked about it, is that instead of no parking, is that we put no stopping at Huron Trail Street South. I also have a letter into Orangeville Council. It's a joint letter that I sent to both of you. So we're trying to keep it consistent because it only makes sense. And if both municipalities aren't in agreement, then we can't do it because it'll just cause grief for someone else. And then not in the letter, but discussions with Mike and Fred is to look at putting some temporary no parking on Huron Trail Street North to stop people from parking in front of the residences over there. And
so
included in my recommendation was to actually put a sign at the intersection of Heron Trail Street South and Bona Vista before people even turn in there, that when the park is at capacity, that we could put a sign up there, park full, no entry, and try to deter people from even turning down there in the first place.
Yep.
Okay, so with the resolution that I got in front of me, it says to install temporary no parking signs, but you just mentioned no stopping signs.
I'll defer that to Mike and Fred. It was a recommendation, whatever. That's not my forte on what's the better of two things, but after discussions is that no parking means the car has to be parked and the person has to be physically out of the car, whereas no stopping can mean that the person is stopped on the side of the road and still in the car and we can move them along. And then the police can lay tickets.
Okay. Mike?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Fred and I discussed it this morning, and I also discussed it with Mr. Lidster. The easiest route is no parking signs, because we can do that without amending our bylaw, because there is a section in our current parking bylaw that allows for me to install a temporary no parking zone. Fred's going to kill me right now. The problem is we don't have signs available yet, and I won't have signs till this Thursday. So that was the quick fix for the Huron Ontario South portion, with a future recommendation by myself to council for no stopping, and that would stop the concern that the CVC is seeing right now. We have yet to receive complaints from residents, but I think in talking with Bill, I think we will. They're backing up and waiting to get into the parking lot, and from what I understand, the distance, they're right over the crest of a hill right now, which is a safety issue. So the no stopping, anybody that would get a no parking ticket while they're sitting in their driver's seat, I don't see the fruition of that through our bylaw enforcement, and the no stopping would allow us to move them. So for the south, we were looking for council to support the no parking temporary on the Huron Ontario South, with a future report back from myself with respect to no stopping. And with respect to the Huron Ontario section, I think that came up generally around or after the submission of Mr. Litzer's report, supported by pictures, and that zone would be an appropriate area for for a temporary no parking sign as well.
Okay. Fred Nix?
No, I was just going to ask whether our bylaw allowed, and Mike's already answered that. I didn't know our bylaw allowed for temporary no parking.
Okay, Sharon?
So, Bill, would the sign that you put at Buena Vista and here, Ontario, that would be your sign that would say Island Lake Park, that it's closed or whatever you want, whatever you're putting on, that would be your sign?
That's correct. We're just looking for permission to put it on your property. And again, it's only when the park is full. So it would be, once the park is at our capacity, we go out with the truck, physically put it there, and then take it down. So it's not a permanent.
Yep, sure.
Okay. So, yes, John?
So Mike, the idea would be that you would get authority under our bylaw to do an emergency no stopping zone, or that you would make it a permanent no stopping zone.
The thoughts, there's no section for a no stopping zone. Fred, maybe you can shake your head up and down if I'm correct. There's nothing in our bylaw right now that states that I can do a no stopping zone, but it does say that I can do a temporary no parking zone. There's a longer pronged solution that is provided by the no parking zone becoming permanent, maybe at a later date. If the park does ever reach its capacity once COVID is done, it does take a narrow section of road and stops any parking from the exterior of the CVC gate. In the coming meeting, I would be probably looking at the solution of a no stopping zone in front of the CVC gate, because these people are waiting in their cars, right? So if the bylaw enforcement officer does show up, they're not really parking, right? We flag them with the no idle zone, they shut their car off. So it becomes, the stopping gives us the ability, this would be at a future meeting, the no stopping zone gives us the ability to move people on, especially the OPP, and keeps, and Fred, correct me if I'm wrong, but it would, the creation of a no stopping zone would actually allow the bylaw enforcement officer to ticket, but Fred and I would need time to research this, figure out an appropriate sign or fine, and to vet the full extent of what our bylaw enforcement could do with this no stopping zone.
I think going forward, it would be helpful to have a temporary no stopping authority within the bylaw that would allow you the flexibility to address something like this. I have a second question, given that that is a boundary road. I'm not certain whether it's OPP Orangeville or OPP Dufferin that does enforcement along there, but if I can make a wild and crazy suggestion, maybe this is something that OPP Orangeville could take on, because quite frankly, our resources are stretched to the limit.
I'm not aware.
Oh, I have a quick question, John.
I'm not aware of any divisionary lines that have been set yet, but that definitely, I get the gist of what you're saying, and that makes sense.
Yeah, me either. So.
Okay.
You know what? I don't know who is responsible for enforcement. I just know that the west side is Orangeville, the east side is Mono, and who does the patrol? I have no idea, but I think it's a jolly good thing for Orangeville to actually take responsibility for that section of road.
Okay, Sharon?
That's an interesting conversation, because when the OPP came down our driveway, not because of us, looking into something else, I asked him if he was Orangeville, and he said, we're all the same. We're all the same. So that'd be an interesting conversation to have.
Okay. Ralph?
Yes, Runner. Bill, I'm not quite sure how this is actually going to work out for you. You're not going to have any lineups anymore. I guess that's the effect. And if people want to get in, they come driving down. If they happen to be arriving there at the gate as somebody's leaving, they get in. Otherwise, they have to turn around. But I'm not quite sure how you're going to actually manage it. It's not my problem, but
Yeah, so through you, Mayor Ryan, to Councillor Metcalfe. So Ralph, we have 3 options to gain access to the conservation area. I do have 75 spots that are reservable spots. So you can reserve those online, and when you come to the park, it will guarantee you get into the park. So we don't fill those 75 spots up. So if we have the gates closed at the capacity, that person has the reservation, they come into the park. And then we have just the same day show up, pay at the park. And that can either be cash or online sales.
so you won't have anybody in line. That's your objective. You have no lineups, right?
That is correct. We're trying to stop people from parking up in front of all the houses on the east side of Heron Trail Street South, where the neighbors are, because it's only gonna last too long. And again, so we do have a permanent solution, as you're aware, that we're doing the management plan process for Iron Lake. And our proposal for that will be looking to have 2 lanes coming into the park, and then the queuing will be actually inside the park and mitigate the lineups up on Heron Trail Street South.
Okay. All right then. So we have a motion. The council directs the Director of Public Works to install temporary no parking signs on the east side of Huron Ontario Street from the main entrance to Island Lake Conservation Area southward for a distance to be determined at the discretion of the Director of Public Works. Could I have a mover? Moved by Sharon and seconded by John, or, okay, I'll put you down, Fred. And is there any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I'll call for anybody opposed. That carries. So thank you,
very much.
Joe. Okay, our
Yeah, we
next
appreciate
item.
it.
Yeah. Okay, let's hope it works. So the next report is from Emma Holmes regarding the Mono Youth Soccer Program for this year. So Emma.
Hi. The report is just talking about the Recreation Department's plans for this upcoming summer for our Mono Youth Soccer Program.
Okay. Is there any questions on the reports that was provided to us? Yes, John?
Emma, welcome. Is there any indication from the school board that they're prepared to relax their policy to permit outdoor activity on outdoor lands as distinct from using community use within their schools? They seem to have this very hard and fast, rule that didn't make a distinction between indoor and outdoor activity. And are they still clinging to that?
I'm going to pass this one to Kim to answer.
That's no problem. That's been part of the soccer program that I've been looking after. So in my correspondence with the Upper Grand School Board and with talking with other senior recreation directors within Parks and Recreation Ontario, no one has heard from school boards, not just the Upper Grand District School Board, in regards to relinquishing the fields for municipal use. It appears that at this point they're just going to hang on to them. They're going to go into the summer season, and the schools are remaining closed, and they're not pursuing anything. We do have a permit application in with them at this point, and if they, for any reason, did decide to go forward, we would hear right away, as we're a previous renter, and we'd be one of the first to hear. But at this point, through my correspondence, they're not planning on doing so.
Well, just for the record, I think it's ridiculous that they're being more restrictive than the provincial guidelines allow. I mean, you know, really. And they are.
Okay. Any other questions or comments regarding the report? Seeing none, then we have a motion that council receives and approves the report regarding my program 2021 plans dated May 31st, 2021. Could I have a mover? Moved by Magdalo and seconded by Martin. Any further discussion? Okay, call for the vote. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, that's carried.
Nice to see you back, Emma.
Thank you. Yes, it's nice to be back.
Thanks
Thank
for
you.
attending, Emma. Okay, the next one is the Mono Pollinator Garden Annual Report. And Ralph, you've provided us with your comprehensive report. Is there anything you wanted to highlight, or?
Thank you, Your Honor. Every year we usually present a report to council, and it's important, I think, that council is aware of what's happening at the Pollinator Garden. That's one of my intentions. We're very supportive. Council is very supportive of the garden, and that's very much appreciated. I just highlight a couple of points. Last year was a unique one because of the pandemic. We did not do any planting except transplanting within the garden. We did not purchase any plant. We carried out maintenance twice a week with under Dita Holdenride, and she supervises this and does a wonderful job. One of the concerns that we have is that the ongoing support of the Pollinator Garden by volunteers, and to this end we encourage new volunteers. We get quite a few new volunteers through the website on the Deferred website. About 6 of these last year ended up working at the park, up on the Pollinator Garden. So that was I think pretty good. If we can keep getting new volunteers, we'll be in good shape. The biggest change was what we call the south plot. So there's the main section, which is adjacent to the road, and then south of that, which is towards Island Lake, is about maybe 60% of the yard, and that's been it's going to become a wildflower meadow with various groves of small trees and shrubs in between, and a pergola. And so we're well along in the development of this fund. We'll probably do the second area, the final area of wildflower seeding this fall. Presently, we have it covered with cardboard as a means of controlling seed growth. Fundraising was a wash. We had fundraising without doing a lot of effort. It was under Councillor Martin's management. We didn't have a lot of expenses, so very well equal that. And we carry a good balance. We have plans of spending this balance on probably on a some type of a community based educational program, a lectureship or something like that, and that will possibly be happening in a year and a bit, and we're sure that COVID is over. We don't think that it's right to do this, it's best to do this. Virtually, it has so much more impact than it does at first. Education is the reason for the garden, and it was possible to do children's education. We've had a good children's education program under Helen Berry, and that was held off this year. But the garden was visited. It'd be interesting if we could have a counter sometime to see what the accountants. My impression is that the garden was visited more last year than other years. Last year was really the fourth year of planting, and that's about it. I emphasize that all the volunteers are very appreciative of the support, the ongoing support from the town.
Okay, thank you. Fred?
Yeah, how come when the Pollinator Garden gives council its annual report, it goes under new business, and when the Headwater Streams Committee sends its annual report and it gets put down Schedule A? I don't need an answer. Is it because he's older and wiser than me?
Probably.
Probably the older part, for sure.
Okay, so thank you for that report. Now, item number 4, public participation in virtual council meetings. And who was going to have that discussion? John? Sharon?
This was a suggestion to do away with this rather, shall we say, I was going to use the word cumbersome, but it's not. I understand exactly where it's coming from and why we did it, but I think it's outlived its usefulness. 24-hour process of indicating questions. There's no reason, as I understand, and no technical reason why, when we publicize the link to join a council meeting, that can't be shared with the community. And everyone who wants to ask a question simply logs on and asks the question. The mayor is chairing the meeting and can control the prologue, which we inevitably get. And control, whether it's one supplementary or more than one supplementary question. But I think it behooves us to step back from that and try and go back to something that was more the case when we were meeting in public, where people could simply show up, stand up, and ask their questions. So that's my point. I didn't think it needed a motion so much as a direction to staff to relax the protocol, which, by the way, does not have any basis in our procedural bylaw.
Okay, the question I would have is Andrew was asked to look for other meeting softwares to use. Does it make any difference to how things are set up? Andrew or Fred Simpson?
Unless Andrew, if I miss anything, you can fill in. The software that we use is agnostic to whether we require people to pre-register and we send them the meeting information, or whether we make it publicly available as part of the agenda. The reason we didn't was for security purposes. You may recall what's become known as Zoom bombing, when the meeting is published publicly where anyone can have access without asking. There's always the risk that someone that you don't want will join the meeting and do something to disrupt the meeting. It has occurred. It's happened in Chatham-Kent. It's in a meeting there where I believe in that case charges have since been pursued because it was pornography that was posted. It's happened in Innisfil, and of course there's many other locations, not just in Canada, but all sorts of public meetings where it's occurred. So that was the reason. I have canvassed the other municipalities in Deferred, and we're about evenly split, whether it's published or some sort of pre-registration is required. With the exception of the county, they don't have question period.
We do.
Okay, the county clerk had suggested, maybe she was only referring to county council, I'm not sure.
We have question period at committee and at council. It's just that nobody ever asks us a question.
Okay, all right, that's fair enough. So, so we can do it. Andrew, if you need a little more explanation, he can explain on the other risks. So it is a council decision on whether they want to assume that risk or not. That's all it comes down to.
Okay. So, Sharon?
I'm just listening to all of this. I like the idea that people can be right there, but if they can be turfed out of the meeting or and maybe kept from having their mic on or something like that until they're recognized, I assume that we could do that. And Mark, were you going to say something to us?
Well, I think what, and I saw Andrew pop on too. I
Yeah.
think what Fred and Andrew had also been discussing was that if we were going to leave it open, that there be some other levels of protection in there so that they can't be, what's the term, I guess I'm looking for, botted, such as actually having them put in a password to get in. So at least that you know they've looked at your site, they're coming in, they put in a password. It's not just someone that's coming in randomly and or searching all meeting sites through a bot process.
Okay. So, John?
Well, in my other life as a paralegal, I'm into Ontario court sessions every week in Orangeville and elsewhere. It's a Zoom process. There is a mute button, and quite frankly, we never had a mute button when it was live, although we might have wanted one occasionally. I have yet to experience a situation, and we could be dealing with 60 people zooming into a courtroom to set dates for trials and so forth. And I have never experienced a situation where it has been disruptive or it's been Zoom bombed or where inappropriate material has been displayed because, as I say, there's a mute button and there's a disconnect button. And I think that's all we need. And it's frankly even more than what we have when we're meeting in person.
Okay. So, how's the rest of council feel about doing this? Are you in agreement? I guess the other thing is we could try it, and if we run into problems, so either way, at least we're trying to reach out. Yes, Sharon?
Yeah, I think if we can put in those security measures, then I think it's a good idea. If there's, and that we can change our minds later if it doesn't work properly.
Okay. So, yes, Fred?
Perhaps this would be a good time for Andrew to explain what the compromise is that we have in mind. So it would certainly be publishing it so no one had to register, but it wouldn't be as simple as a link that you would click on. And maybe Andrew can explain what we have in mind that would be a modest security measure, and I stress modest.
I'll take that as my cue. So one thing that's often implemented these days on Zoom is that people join with a meeting passcode. This helps to prevent a lot of the sort of scraping for the meeting access information and joining, coming right on. So that would be something that I would heavily recommend if we were to publish the meeting ID along with the link, is just to have that passcode to make it a little harder for people who are just scraping the web for keywords such as meeting access ID.
Okay. So everybody's clear on that? Yes, John?
Just a question for Andrew. When we sign into county meetings, we have to enter a passcode. Is that what you're suggesting?
Yes, it is. Yes.
Okay. When I sign into court sessions, there is no passcode required. I mean, I can live with a passcode, but again, I'm trying to eliminate the encumbrances, barriers, discouragement of individuals signing up to ask questions. That's all I'm trying to do.
I understand. I still would recommend a passcode that, again, we do publish. We make it available for anyone who can go on. It just provides a little bit of extra security for ourselves.
So at 5 minutes to the start of a council meeting, I will have available to me a passcode that I enter as well as the link.
Yes, I would.
In other words, people make last minute decisions to come on and ask questions.
Yes, I would propose that it gets published along with the, right in with the agenda. As soon as the agenda is published, the access ID and the passcode is available too.
No different than the County of Dufferin.
I believe so.
Fred, next.
How, we had 2 questions submitted in advance of today's meeting from the public, and then we had Elaine Kehoe. So how did Elaine Kehoe get into the meeting to ask a question?
Yes, Andrew?
She filled out our online request to join the council meeting, and then I provided her with the access information.
Okay. So it's something that we'd like to try. And Mark, your light's on. Did you want to comment?
No, I was going to turn my camera off and I turned my microphone on, Your Worship.
Okay, okay, just want to check. So, yes, Fred?
So the question I have then, if we go to this system where we no longer ask people to register to join, will we still be providing the opportunity for people to submit questions offline like we are now?
Well,
or must they join the meeting to ask a question?
No, because even with our in-person meetings, we always allowed questions to be emailed in. They didn't necessarily have to be in attendance. So I think we can still continue to accept those. Just to make it a little more open, mind you, if everybody gets their second shot, we could be back to in-person meetings by September. So this might all change again. Okay, so if that's clear, then we're going on to the added item number 5, bylaw to appoint municipal law enforcement officers. So we have that we introduce and give the necessary readings to a bylaw to amend bylaw 2021-27, appointment of municipal law enforcement officers, and that it be signed by the mayor and the clerk for the town of Mono and sealed and engrossed in the bylaw book. Could I have a mover? Moved by Sharon and seconded by Ralph. And any further discussion? Yes, Fred?
Isn't there supposed to be a name attached to this motion? I mean, I'm not clear on what we're doing.
Well, one of our part-time has resigned the position, so we have to amend the schedule that lists who's by law enforcement for the municipality.
Oh, and we just do that with this motion that doesn't name anybody.
Right.
Okay.
You're approving the bylaw that has the names within it, and the only change was the removal of the enforcement officer that resigned.
Okay. So call for the vote. Is anyone opposed? So that's carried. So now we're on to Schedule A. Ralph, did you have anything on Schedule A?
Just one thing, Your Honor, I like the Parry Sound resolution about small pieces of plastic. I think it's a worldwide problem, and it needs a lot of push to try and deal with this. And I think we should throw the weight of the town of Mona behind it with a letter that supports their request, which is to discontinue the use of unencapsulated polystyrene.
So this is item number 10 on the agenda.
Yes.
And so you'd like a letter of support or a motion to support that?
Yes.
And could I have a seconder for that? Seconded by Fred Nix. Any further discussion? All in favor? Or sorry, anybody opposed? Yeah, okay, either way. Okay, we're good. All right, is that the only one that you had, Ralph?
That's it, thanks.
Okay, Fred, did you have anything on Schedule A?
Just a simple one. I'm trying on number 7. I'm trying to follow that subject. So as I understand it, we're going to have 3 conservation authorities that are going to bring us an inventory of services by the end of this year. And I assume staff, you bring us a report on what I'd like to see is what happens if those inventories are substantially different from one conservation authority. Don't answer the question tonight. All I want to know from staff is, will you be bringing us back a report before the end of this year on what the 3 conservation authorities submit to us?
Mark?
Through you, Your Worship. Yes, I would think so, Fred. It'll probably be sooner rather than later. Again, I have a meeting with Mr. Hevener and Ms. Martin Downs from CVC and NVCA on the 18th. So that'll be the first time that I'll have to be able to sit down with them. Other than the initial contact from TRCA late last year, I haven't heard anything back from them other than the correspondence.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else, Fred?
No.
No? Sharon?
I never know what order I'm going to be in. Number 2, I just wanted to say how impressive our letter was to the Minister of the Environment, Conservation and Parks about the Mono Cliffs Park. I thought that was a really excellent letter. Thank you for getting that out there. Hopefully we will get some kind of a good answer.
Anything else on Schedule A? No? John, do you have anything on Schedule A?
Unfortunately, I do. Item number 3, the long-awaited response from the Minister of Transportation to our letters about automated speed enforcement and increase in set fines for speeding. It says absolutely nothing. It's more verbal log rolling. It refers us to legislation recently passed that creates a double standard for stunt driving. And that is anyone who is stunt driving in a zone of less than 80 kilometers per hour is treated more harshly than somebody in a 80 kilometer per hour zone. I would draw council's attention to a press release that came out this week from the OPP. 3 charges of stunt driving, a 26-year-old from Brampton, 131 kilometers per hour on Airport Road in an 80 kilometer per hour zone. A 36-year-old G2 driver. This person is in a whole world of hurt for the balance of their driving life, if they have one. 135 kilometers per hour in an 80 kilometer per hour zone. And then finally, a 28-year-old driver from Niagara at 144 kilometers per hour in an 80 kilometer per hour zone. Thanks to the province, all 3 of those people are rewarded with less of a penalty than people who happen to be in a zone of less than 80 kilometers per hour. Thank you very much, Minister Mulroney.
Okay. Did you have anything else, then, John, that you think that should happen, or do you want anything to come from the service board?
Well, here's what I am sorely tempted to do. I am sorely tempted to move a motion, which I would immediately table, to declare the entire town of Mono a community safety zone, and to declare that all roads under our jurisdiction in the town of Mono with an 80 km/h limit be reduced by 1 kilometer to 79.
Wow.
Just to make the point. This is absurdity. Let me sleep on it. If I do it, I promise to table it. It's on the record, but I'm not proposing we implement it.
Okay. Sharon?
John, didn't they, were the cars impounded? Are these the ones that were impounded and they don't get them for a week, and plus they do get a fine and all of that? I know that it's not up to your standards, but did they not, they were pretty heavily punished, I hope.
Yes, they're impounded for a week, and you lose your license for a week. But under the new rules, in areas of less than 80 km/h, the week becomes a month. Okay?
Yep.
So we have this incredible double standard. And it's all based on the fact that the world begins and ends in downtown Toronto. They do not realize that municipal roads have speed limits of 80 km/h, and we have a lion's share of the problem. But yes, there are dire consequences, and I would dare say that somebody charged with stunt driving on Airport Road is facing between $4,000 and $5,000 in impoundment costs and fines and consequences to insurance. But the reality is that if you're caught stunting in 79 or less, it's double the consequences. And that's what I'm objecting to, is I think it should be the same consequences below and above 80 kilometers.
Thanks.
Okay. All right, so if there's nothing further on Schedule A, we have a motion that we accept Schedule A to this agenda. Could I have a mover? Moved by Mantalo and seconded by Martin. And is anyone opposed? Seeing none, that's carried. So reports of council and staff. So I guess we'll start with, we haven't heard from Les tonight. Is Les still with us?
Yes, I am. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I don't have much to say tonight. I have nothing new to report other than what I've already told council. I did mention in past meetings that we will be getting an audit for our gas tax expenditures for 2020, and that has now proceeded this week. Other than that, there's nothing else.
Okay. Any questions of Les? Okay, thanks Les for tuning in. Dave Trotman, are you still with us?
And Madam Mayor, thank you. Just briefly, the meeting with staff and the Deferred County Consultant did occur today regarding further works on the Deferred County update, the official plan update, more particularly the growth section. There was a fairly fulsome presentation on the allocation. Nothing really new generally. The majority of growth is going to continue to go to urban settlements on full services. For Dufferin, again, the pie of growth mostly will be divided up between the 3 urban settlements, with a little bit more focus, I think, on Grand Valley, actually, and with some challenges, of course, that Shelburne has. That came through discussion. The remainder will go to the rurals, and we're sort of in second line there. So the first order will be to put the first part of the pie of growth through to the urban settlements and then the rural municipalities. So really no surprise there. Then coming up on June the 10th, only 2 days from now, will be the presentation by CVC, Credit Valley Conservation Authority on the Island Lake Management Plan. So that's going to our good planning committee June the 10th at 7 p.m. There's a fulsome set of documents that are online, linked to both the Planning Environmental Natural Heritage Committee web page or portal, and then linked to active planning applications. Other than that, we're having busy weeks with Committee of Adjustment going forward, and some other matters that will be coming up to Planning Committee in the near future. That's about it for me.
Okay. Any questions for David? Yes, John.
David, and to you, Madam Mayor, I'm wondering whether we have an in-camera session this evening on any planning issues that I can ask a question about, or if not, I can speak in code here.
There was no in-camera items listed or requested, so let's see if your code gets across.
Okay, I'll do my best, David. And I think you probably know what I'm going to ask you about. There is a certain operation in the north end of the town that has attracted a lot of concern by the neighbors in terms of whether it is appropriately zoned or whether it has Niagara Escarpment approval for the activities going on there. They are noisy, they are disruptive. There's a bit of a shuffle going on as to whether this is a permanent activity or whether it's something that is simply developed as a result of COVID and the inability of the family members to attend properly licensed facilities similar to this. That's about as cryptic as I can get. But I'm wondering if we've heard anything back from the Niagara Escarpment, whether we have any sense of whether this is an appropriate land use, and if it's out of the norm, what are we doing about it?
Well, there was an email that came through our good bylaw enforcement officer. I think it was either today or yesterday. It was quite a fulsome outline based on a more recent attendance by him there. I just don't recall, I'm looking for it now, I don't recall whether there was any reference to NEC and their follow-up. I mean, I think suffice to say, I can provide a more fulsome review of it if you wish, Deputy Mayor Krillman, and I mean, depending on what our good CA wants to do or handle this and what matter, we can bring forward a short report on it, just because I know, as you have mentioned, it is also in the NEC. He didn't have any alarm bells go off in this report at this time. However, he did provide a fairly detailed outline on some of the, how can I put it, appliances, and I use that as a small a, or devices that have been set up, and how they've been used and why they're being used, or so according to the owner or the applicant, or the owner, excuse me.
This strikes me as something that at the absolute minimum requires an NEC development permit if in fact it's going to be an ongoing continuous activity. Whether we're shrouding it in fun for the family and all kinds of other excuses, but the reality is that the neighbors are being disturbed by this, and I think we need to be on top of it. And my experience with the NEC of late is that they're late to the party on a lot of this stuff. So if you could follow up, that would be greatly appreciated.
Mark?
Yeah, I was going to say the email came in after hours today, I think 4:35 from Eugene. It has been copied to the Niagara Escarpment Commission, and Eugene had looked at it. Just with the limited people that were there, because he made an appointment to go up and meet with the landowners while it was in operation. So he didn't see a noise bylaw issue there. It could just be the numbers that they had there. But again, it was all forwarded on to the Niagara Escarpment Commission, and they're the ones that have to make the decision on the actual land use. So.
Okay, I would just comment that I don't know that he's seeing what is described to me as the worst of it. He may be visiting at times when it's fairly moderate. I drove by on the weekend and counted no less than 5 cars. I'll leave it with you, but this is going to be an issue of ongoing concern.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So if there's nothing further for David, we'll move on to Kim.
Not too much to report tonight, Council. Still working on the ash trees, rec staff, working diligently on the gardens at Menorah that I think Councillor Martin will be happy to hear. We're just about done over there. They're worth taking a look at, going to go over and see them. So lots of work's been done over there. We'll be heading over to Mono Centre this week and to the office as well. So hold tight if you've been looking at those gardens. We're getting there. What else? Oh, the survey for the seniors online programming for suggestions or information in regards to the partnership that we're working on with the Oshawa Seniors Community Center. The survey is now online on our website, and it's been distributed out on our social media pages. So, and I'm going to personally be sending all of you a link tomorrow for the survey. So the more people we can get to respond to the survey, the more accurate we'll be in hopefully planning our programming for seniors come this fall. So please encourage your friends to fill in the survey.
Okay, thank you. Any questions of Kim? Seeing none. Thank you, Kim. Michael.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So an update on calcium. We're just finishing zone 3, stepping into zone 4 of 5. So we're hoping, stepping into zone 4 of 5 zones. So we're about 70% done, I would say. 75% or so of the gravel tones have gone down in the Rillessie area. And we're working with a lot more limestone this year. We're pretty happy with that, and we're working on that. One thing that I wanted, there are no parking signs. I ordered 10% more than I needed. I hope that's enough. But we are getting a lot bigger signs in, and we will start to probably installing those come Monday, maybe Friday if they come in early enough, and depending upon weather. One thing I did want council to know is I received confirmation from the county that they received our email with our request to no parking on Mono Centre Road from 3rd line to around through the village and down to 15 Side Road south of the tennis courts and Mono Community Center. So I didn't, after tonight's concern with respect to the economic impacts and things, I'll be chatting with Scott Burns at the county, and if council has any concerns with respect to the comments that were made tonight, I'll still follow through with the last direction, but we will work through that with the county, and I will let council know, and your worship and Deputy Mayor, you guys will see it on the agenda, I would think, or at the Public Works meeting. So we'll keep an eye on what the thoughts of the county are with respect to our request. Today I got notice our 2006 International blew an engine on it, so I'm dealing with the replacement or potential replacement of a snowplow truck. that is going to need a complete engine rebuild. It was supposed to be tendered next year, but I'll get back to council and work with the treasurer, Les, with respect to what our plan of action is to ensure our fleet is ready for winter. Yes, I said it. And we had a couple lawsuits in Public Works from slip and falls and vehicular accidents that went through mediation, and there was no mediation, so I'll be preparing for trials on those in the coming months. I'm not sure if council was aware, but there was some recommendation. Yes, council was brought to their attention that the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks did a inspection on our landfill. They wondered if our methane monitoring program was satisfying our knowledge with respect to the methane migration. The engineers didn't recommend any more wells, but the town, under due diligence, believed that there was a couple of gaps in the waste areas surrounding the landfill waste, mainly in the direction of the houses on the west side of Third Line across the road. While we do water studies, water samples from those residents, there was no gas probes in the direction, and the migration of the waste was to the east. Anyway, we installed 3 wells under due diligence, and those reports have come back 0 on methane findings, so that's good news, and we'll continue to monitor those as part of our deep methane monitoring. Landfill, it will be open for its 3rd cycle of brush receipt tomorrow, and the last one will be on Saturday. The take-up has been pretty receptive and generally busy, and we'll prepare. And we'll still have the one in the fall, is right, for the 4 days in the fall for the residents, and that would be the extent of my update, Madam Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Any questions of Mike? Seeing none. Thanks, Mike. Fred Simpson.
So I have 2 issues, and not surprisingly, if council can handle some more parking, they both involve parking. So first off, if I know Councillor Nix, I think you raised it about the online reservation system for the Monoclus Provincial Park. So they're reserving 110 spots for each of the 4-hour blocks. The parking lot is supposed to hold 150 cars, but in practice, they're only getting 120 to 125 cars in there. They will be holding back 10 spots just in case they need them. So practically then, they're pretty much 100% online reservation for that parking lot. And that begs the question on what we're going to do with the Mono Community Center parking lot this weekend. I don't have the staff to control it like I did last weekend by having someone posted there from basically 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. both Saturday and Sunday. We just don't have the staff to do that. And while I'm working to try to find, someone or someone's else that can take on that duty for this weekend, in all likelihood, that's not that probable that I'm going to have someone for this weekend. So in that likely event that I don't have the staff, what is council's direction with that parking lot?
Fred Nix.
Why don't we close it and say to the tennis club, we don't have the staff to have someone standing here keeping cars out and letting tennis club members in. So if you want to use the lot, you let them do it. Put barricades across the driveway with a parking lot closed sign and somehow tell the tennis club, yeah, you're allowed in, but we're not gonna have a person at the gate that'll let you in.
Sure. Yes, John?
Maybe they would be receptive to the notion that there are members who have a match scheduled or, want to play. They phone ahead to somebody who then goes out and moves the barricade. That might work, except for the fact that that's a sort of a black hole in terms of internet, or pardon me, in terms of cell service.
I'm not sure who they're going to phone ahead to, is the problem.
That becomes their issue.
Heron?
So the games are all pre-booked. And so perhaps John's idea would work because they all know that so-and-so's will be there at 10, then, the next set of games are played at 12 or whatever it is. So they have the schedule. So maybe that would work. I think it's worth it if we don't have staff to be there. It's worth a shot. What do we do about people wanting to come in to use the children's play area and things like that? If these are, we still haven't solved a local problem yet. I think that this is probably solvable with the tennis club, but what do we do about the rest of the space there that others come to use that live close?
Mark?
Well, I think that's part of the issue that we struggled with even 2 weeks ago before we had to close it last weekend is what about the locals that do use these facilities? One of the options is to just say, for 2 weeks, just to shut it down, just close it entirely and wait until the online process is on, and have nobody attend. I mean, that is an option. It's the simplest solution, but it's going to create issues for the tennis club and for people that do want to use that park. The moment I think you see vehicles driving into that parking facility, everyone's going to want to come in. You see one turn in, then I'm going in. And if you don't have someone there from more of a security perspective, then you're going to see what we saw 2 weeks ago, where it was mayhem. It's a very difficult balance between allowing the local community in and the user groups, and then stopping the others that are coming, because who's coming from Dufferin, who's coming from Brampton, who's coming from Mona, who's coming from Toronto. You'll get a different story depending on what the correct answer needs to be at the gate.
Yes, Sharon?
Thank you. So Mark, your suggestion is that it be just closed, period. Is that what you think would work?
I'm saying if you're looking for something that is, simplistic, it's, that is capable of being done, yes, you could close it, and you'd have to tell the tennis club, you either walk there or you get a ride there for your games. But you're also then stopping the local community from using the parkland unless they're willing to ride their bikes or walk.
Well, I guess the issue is that from my perspective this is a temporary measure, and I think that the residents have to understand that we are trying to protect them as best we can. And if it's going to be really hot this weekend, how many people are going to want to be on a tennis court? I don't know. Because if we close it for an hour, are we talking about 2 weeks or 2 weekends?
Well, that depends on two things, I guess, if I can interject. One is, can we get the staff to control access? And how are we going to determine who's a resident and who isn't a resident to come in? Tennis court's easy. We asked them to provide a copy of their booking. That's what we used. But for residents, it's going to be tough to, we're really not in a position to demand ID. And it would take quite a while before we could issue parking passes to every resident in town.
Right. John?
Fred, you were there at the gate on the weekend. How many people did you encounter who wanted to go in to use the playground?
Just use the playground? People who said they were Mono residents and wanted to come in to use the park, not necessarily for the playground, but maybe anywhere in the park. Saturday was by far the busiest day because I was there the whole day, and I spoke to maybe 2 dozen at most. Out of the hundreds of people that I spoke to who wanted to come into there to park.
Well, I know that this hour is getting late, and if we have to make a decision, and because we're still in a form of controlled opening, I think our action of closing the park is defendable, and it's only for a short period of time. Because within 2 weeks, there's another form of the next phase. If the numbers keep going in the direction they're going, in terms of cases being reported, it's quite possible that we'll be into the next phase anyway. Yes, Sharon?
Are we talking about the weekends, Saturday and Sunday, or are we talking about close it tomorrow?
Well, has there been any problems during the week?
No.
So it's just been the weekends.
Yeah,
So
it's been about 8 a.m. until about 4:30 in the afternoon.
Yeah.
So if that's true, then I think if the tennis club is alerted to that, maybe they can try to manage their games during the week for a couple of weeks until, that's certainly up to them, but if they're given notice right away, that might help.
Okay, I see Mike has put his mic on.
That's okay. I'll comment at the end, I think. I'll listen to comments, listen to council first.
Okay, Fred, next.
Yeah, after listening to everyone, I think the simple thing is close the parking lot. Just put a sign up, closed. Let the tennis club know it. And who suggested it, Mark? If you're going to play tennis at 10 o'clock, your spouse is going to have to drop you off there and come back and pick you up.
Okay. So, Mike?
So as Fred Simpson can attest, these are pretty easily movable barriers. And all it's going to take is one person to open it up at 10 o'clock on Saturday morning and it's done, right? If you're looking for a non-person closure, I'd like to receive direction as to what you think that should look like. It could be the closure we have right now, which is sawhorses, or it's a real closure. So I just think that if we don't boy, we look, the look of my ideal closure is not a nice look, right? It's impenetrable, right? You gotta make it so it's non-movable, and
Dump a tandem load of gravel on the driveway, and then on Monday morning, get back and pick it up.
John?
There's outfall from that, Fred, and that's why I'm bringing this up.
I'm still in favor of keeping the sawhorses and allowing the tennis club to self-govern admittance for its members who, make arrangements to call in advance. They'll work out an arrangement. We run the risk of annoying or pissing off a number of people who come to use the park or the playground. But the reality is, if we open up the parking, it's all going to be full, and they're not going to get in anyway. There we go.
Okay. So what direction are we looking at? Yes, Ralph?
This is not the kind of problem that we can solve because we don't know what's going to happen. But I think Mark is probably right. If somebody opens up the barricade, somebody for the tennis club, other people are going to see that and they're going to be going in too. I don't think it's going to work. I think we should communicate the issue to the tennis club. Suggest that they work they play Monday to Friday, and that it will be closed for the weekend, for the first 2 weekends. So I have a question. Somebody mentioned, I'm not sure who it was, that once the reservation system is in place, we don't have this problem. And I don't, maybe I'm a little bit slow tonight, but I don't follow that. Aren't we going to have an ongoing problem there at this parking lot?
You're talking about access to the cliffs, Mona Cliffs Park.
I'm talking about the parking lot area beside at Mona Community Center. I'm talking about how we're going to continue with handling, keeping people out of that for the rest of the season.
Yes, Mark?
Well, the hope is that when people have to register before they come up, that they're just not leaving from wherever they are to come up. And that word gets out quickly that there are 18 parks that you can't just show up at the gate and get into. So we're hoping that that should reduce the volume of traffic coming up to the park without permits and looking for places to park. We've always permitted some overflow parking at the Mona Community Center. It's just never been abused like it has the last month or so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I think we should close the park, Your Honor, or close the parking lot for the next 2 weeks and ask the tennis club to adapt to it.
Okay. Brad?
Mike, I was only kidding about dropping a load of gravel there, but what you could do is park one of your trucks right across the entranceway. Lock the truck up and just park the truck across the driveway for the weekend. They can't move that.
To be clear, we're talking weekend only?
Yeah.
Yes.
Are we only talking about the weekend?
Yes.
Okay.
The parking lot's been open all week, and the wedding hall, and I'm starting to rethink my permanent closure. I don't know how the insurance company would feel if the fire trucks couldn't gain access.
It's a block fire route.
Exactly.
I don't know. We haven't got the staff to do it. If we put sawhorses across, as someone said, somebody will move them, and then all hell breaks loose. Park some of the trucks across the driveway and give the fire department a set of keys.
Sharon?
So, Mike, what else could we put there? Instead of the sawhorses and instead of one of the trucks?
We can make it as inconvenient as possible to move the gate, to move the barricades.
I'll go for that.
I don't know what that looks like yet, but
I trust you.
Your
Well, I
worship,
guess-
I gotta
Yeah.
go home.
Yeah,
I
well,
can't.
if we try it for this weekend and see if it works. But if it doesn't work, then we go back to square one. And in the meantime, trying to find some staff. Kim?
Just a point is that we're going to have to make sure that we sign it ahead of time, because when I was out there last Friday, there were vehicles parked in Mono Community Center parking lot at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, sort of thing, 4:30. And I guess they were just there from the day, or they were out hiking or wherever they were. But if we block them in, then we've got a problem.
Well, there is an opportunity that Public Works could go and close it at noon if there's limited vehicles that are in the lot. But we've got to try something. We can't leave it open because we know what's going to happen with no attendance. So, yes, Sharon?
As long as we let the tennis club know that they're the main user of that area, I'd like to know that somebody's going to clue them in.
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry. I don't believe these were tennis players because there was no one on the courts.
No, what I was saying is that for this next couple of weekends, I'd like them to know that this is what the plan is.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. We'll give them heads up on it.
Okay.
I have a feeling we're going to hear from them, but I will certainly give them heads up.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, Fred Simpson.
So that just leaves confirmation then that council does want me to pursue finding other staff as quickly as possible for the next number of weeks then. Is that correct?
I think that we should look till at least after the July 1st long weekend and see where we're at. That's my opinion. John?
And if I can suggest, I don't think they need to be bylaw enforcement officers because they're best employed out handing out tickets.
Right.
And I agree. I think we just need parking lot attendance is sort of where we're swinging now.
Yeah.
I would go for the simpler solution of closing the parking lot every weekend between now and July 1st.
I agree.
Okay. Well, we're going to have to start with this weekend and see what happens. Correct? So we'll have to start with this weekend and then deal with the fallout. And in the meantime, Fred Simpson, if you can find some people that are willing to do parking attendance job, and obviously just see how long we actually need that for.
So I will go ahead, and if I find people, I can secure people as parking lot attendants on the weekends then as soon as I can.
Yeah.
I'm not in favor of that. I'm saying close the parking lot.
Well, the problem is trying to abide by our insurance coverage for fire, access, et cetera, we don't have if we had gates, that would be something totally different. We could padlock it and give a key to the tennis club, but we don't have that. So we have to do something. Okay. Mark, did you want to say anything?
I was just waiting for the conversation to finish.
Okay. So I
Okay.
know it's getting late, everybody, but I think we should keep our sights on this weekend alone, and possibly Fred could give us a update Monday by email as to the fallout. Okay. Okay, so Mark.
I'll be very quick. First of all, I sent an email out to Your Worship and Deputy Mayor Creelman the other day about the Police Services Board review that is ongoing. So just an update on that. Orangeville did recommend that they maintain their status quo and have a Police Services Board for their own service. And they have forwarded those comments on to the consultation committee. If you recall, that was to be done county-wide as one voice. So that, I guess, rule has been broken. They forwarded their comments on. Does council wish me to forward our comments that were put together well over a month ago as a discussion point on to the Solicitor General's office, at least as our own comments? Because it does not look like there's anyone pulling together a one succinct voice for the county.
Right.
Yes, yes.
Yes, I think so, because that solution makes sense. So at least the Solicitor General will know that we've been working on this and trying to do what we think is the right thing to do. Yes, John.
I agree. Once somebody breaks the rule, we've got to dive in there and submit our own plan. And I find it interesting that the Orangeville Police Service Board did not recommend the status quo. I understand that they recommended a 3-board model, no, a 4-board model, I should say. With Orangeville and Shelburne staying the same, and the rural municipalities bundling together as we suggested. But that obviously didn't pass Orangeville Council.
Okay. All right. Anything else, Mark?
Yeah, as council is aware, we were being audited with our AODA policies, our accessibility policies. Most of the municipalities in Dufferin were. Seems to be the thing to do, or public audits right now from our agencies. So we are in compliance as of yesterday, so I just want to let council know. And then finally, July 2nd is the Friday following the Canada Day weekend. I'm looking at closing the office as a shutdown. Staff will take holiday days for that shutdown. I think it'll provide an opportunity for a well-deserved break for staff at this point. And I think a lot of other municipalities in Dufferin are also considering that, just so you're aware. So that was all I had.
Okay. Any questions of Mark? Seeing none, then thanks, Mark. So now, any council members have anything that is urgent to report, as we are at 10:15?
I'm going
yes.
home.
Yes, I know. Okay. Did you have anything, Ralph? Are you okay? How about you, Sharon?
I just
I
wanted
have
to
the
say,
second shot, and so I'm ready for in-person meetings in September. There you go.
Okay. Yes, Ralph?
well, I spent the day at the Alpha convention. The Alpha is the Association of Public Health units, and it was very interesting. And I will not tell you anything more about it, but we had all the big names of public health were there giving their talks. The other thing is I was supposed to today attend a Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing town hall session, which was on accountability for municipal council members. You may remember that I volunteered to do this. This was a technological disaster, and I was unable to get online. I don't think they lost very much by not having me there. And finally, I want to say thank you to Mike for responding so quickly on getting the no parking signage, and it's very much appreciated.
Okay. John, did you have anything that you wanted to report?
Nothing in particular, and I'll resist the temptation to move notices of motion tonight.
Okay. All right then. So since there are no notices of motion from John, has anybody else got any? Seeing none, then we'll close off the meeting. Thank you everybody for your patience and attendance. That we introduce and give the necessary readings to a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council in the town of Mono, session 13-2021, held on June 8th, 2021, that it be signed by the mayor and clerk and sealed and engrossed in the bylaw book. Could I have a mover? Moved by Martin and seconded by Creelman. Anybody opposed? That's carried. And we adjourn at 10:15 p.m. And so that's moved by, Fred's left, so moved by Ralph and seconded by Sharon. And that's great. Thanks very much, everybody. Good night. Safe home.
Thanks, everyone. Good night.
Night all.